High on the mountain peak, the full moon shines down with an eerie glow. High on the cliff, leader Yang so praises the brilliant memory of young Jin Sowoon, who lies battered and bleeding out. The boy replies that everything was only possible because of his masterstroke. As the chief of the Murim alliance looks down at him, he declares that they have finally restored every single lost record of the legendary divine sword. With a cold smile, Yang So actually thanks the dying kid for completing this crucial mission. Lying powerless on the cold, bloody ground, Jin Sowoon groans that he only memorized the texts on command, and yet, something feels horribly wrong. Furious, the boy asks if this pathetic betrayal is really the only reward he gets for his loyalty. Drawing his blade, the leader warns that a rogue warrior possessing secrets of this magnitude would become an absolutely lethal weapon if the demonic cult recruited him. Aiming his sharp steel at the helpless youth, he calmly claims that the boy has to die for the sake of true justice. Absolutely wild. Even while bleeding to death, Jin Sowoon just laughs right in the hypocrite's face. Mocking the high and mighty speech, he asks what threat a totally broken alliance could ever possibly pose to them. He directly mocks his enemy, reminding the leader that their forces already lost to the cult and ran like absolute cowards. Glowering with pure rage, the leader insists they will rise again and conquer their enemies. But Jin Sowoon just fires back with a cold, mocking smirk. They used innocent peasants as human shields during their retreat to the North Sea. He spits that if the alliance values power over lives, then they are no better than the actual demonic cult. Screaming in rage at the bitter truth, the furious leader instantly accuses the boy of selling his soul to the enemy. Poised on the edge of the deep abyss, Jin Sowoon lets out his final regret, cursing himself for trusting his sect's fate to these fake righteous bastards. Staring down at his bloody hands, he makes one last choice to control exactly how his life is going to end. With a gentle smile, the young warrior leaps backwards straight into the empty void, choosing to die on his own rather than at that bastard's hands. Plummeting past the sharp rocks, he curses his absolute photographic memory for turning his whole life into a living nightmare. Flashbacks of the war flood his mind, remembering the day every single young disciple in his tiny sect was dragged to the battlefield. Because the demonic cult was utterly unstoppable, the cowardly alliance leaders used those young kids as human shields while they ran away during the entire massacre. Desperately hoping to save his brothers, look at him now crashing through branches as he recalled memorizing those sacred records out of pure desperation. He desperately wondered if he should have focused on training his martial arts. With bitter tears, he cursed the heavens for giving him a useless, perfect memory instead of real, destructive power. As his life faded, the strange bracelet on his wrist started glowing brightly, matching the incredibly deep regret in his heart. He prayed from the very bottom of his soul for the godlike power to protect himself and shield all his beloved sect brothers from that slaughter. Suddenly, a loud voice cuts through the sunny training field, shouting at him to stop playing dead and finally get off the ground. A wooden sword pokes his head as a voice calls him a useless idiot for passing out so damn quickly. Clenching his practice sword tightly, Jin Sowoon grumbles under his breath, thinking that this must be yet another painful flashback. He slowly pushes himself up from the dirt, groaning from the agonizing physical pain racking his weak, battered young body. Wait, hold on. The sheer, excruciating pain hitting him right now is way too real to be a dream. Eyes snap open. Stunned, he looks at row after row of young disciples practicing with their wooden swords. Jin Sowoon looks around in complete shock, slowly recognizing the exact place where he is standing. With a racing heart, he realizes he has traveled back in time to the Taiyi sect training grounds from his childhood. A couple of younger disciples watch his bizarre reaction with deep concern, utterly clueless about what is going on. Tears well up in Jin Sowoon's eyes as he stares at the faces of the beloved friends he lost so long ago. He rushes forward. The young warrior takes a sudden step forward and charges straight toward his confused companions. He wraps both of them in a tight, desperate embrace, leaving them totally speechless in the middle of the busy training yard. The pink-haired girl blushes furiously, trying to push him off while asking what on earth is suddenly wrong with him. Another disciple stands there completely baffled, asking what on earth happened to their senior brother to make him snap so suddenly. Nearby disciples start whispering among themselves in confusion, wondering if he ate something rotten to act this crazy while crying with pure emotion. Jin Sowoon still believes this is just his life flashing before his eyes right before his final judgment. With a genuine smile, he thinks that at least seeing the faces of his living brothers again is a beautiful dream. Before his time is up, he affectionately pinches the girl's cheek, admitting he even missed the constant nagging she used to give him. He pinches the youth's cheek, laughing about the past, and says he would wash those dirty blankets 1,000 times with him. A rival holding a wooden sword mocks Jin Sowoon, asking if he is faking this madness just to escape their upcoming duel. The arrogant bully openly threatens him, saying he will absolutely destroy his younger brothers next. If the protagonist refuses to fight, Jin Sowoon feels completely discouraged, realizing that even in his final memory, this unbearable guy still shows up to hassle him. He remembers Jaiqiang all too well, a spoiled rich kid who used training sessions to brutally beat the other disciples. Remembering how their sect endured those beatings just to keep their sponsors, Jin Sowoon finally grabs his wooden sword to fight. If the heavens want me to crush you, even in this dying memory, I am glad to take my sweet revenge. Absolutely furious at the kid's sheer boldness, the rival charges forward like a madman. Gripping his wooden sword tightly, Jin Sowoon tracks every single movement with a cold, serene gaze, staying laser-focused on the incoming attack. He instantly recognizes the technique called the Triple Phantom Blade, the very move that caused him so much agony back then. It was a violent style taught by a wanderer, packed with fierce strikes designed for pure aggression. The blade aims dirty, straight for the eyes, leaving young, inexperienced disciples completely defenseless. In the past, he lacked the strength to dodge such a dirty trick. But this time around, everything is different. Jin Sowoon slips past the attack with effortless ease, proving a cheap trick like that won't work on him anymore. The rival's eyes go wide in shock when he sees his lethal strike avoided so effortlessly by this kid. In his past life, our protagonist spent years locked away in the Alliance archives, studying ancient secret manuals. Compared to those legendary martial arts, his rival's technique is nothing but child's play. He had to memorize thousands of legendary manuals under immense pressure, which featured vastly superior combat styles. Now, as the enemy lunges desperately, Jin Sowoon easily sees every single opening in that pathetic move. His eyes glow, and watch how he calculates the exact split second to deliver a brutal counterattack. He moves like lightning, sliding across the dusty courtyard floor to catch his opponent completely off guard. Using a basic technique of the Taeyul sect, the young man delivers a crushing blow right to the bully's face. Taking a massive hit, the bully starts bleeding from his nose and freaks out in absolute shock. He can't believe the incredible power behind such a basic move. Jin Sowoon approaches with a sly smile, whispering, "How does that taste?" A deep satisfaction swells in his chest as he beats down his bully, using the martial arts of his own beloved sect. He lands another heavy blow on the guy's head, cleansing his soul after years of swallowing so much humiliation in his past life. The heavy impact sends the rich kid crashing to the ground, completely disoriented as the surrounding disciples stare in absolute disbelief. Trembling on the dirt, the fallen bully still struggles to stand while Jin Sowoon looks down at him with cold, dead eyes. The spoiled brat roars in fury, humiliated to be beaten by a common disciple, using what he always called trash martial arts. With a bloody face and consumed by pure hatred, the bully completely loses his mind and starts screaming like a lunatic. He lunges, shouting desperate threats that Jin Sowoon will pay a heavy price for daring to strike him back. But before he can even make a move, the guy faceplants and passes out cold, leaving Jin Sowoon surprised by his pathetic weakness. One of the younger kids watching the fight is left standing there with his jaw dropped, unable to process such a rapid outcome. Suddenly, all the younger disciples erupt into wild cheers, celebrating the epic victory of their senior brother. Staring up at the bright sky, Jin Sowoon smiles, thinking he can finally pass on to the afterlife without a single regret. Suddenly, a massive fist slams right into his face, brutally knocking him awake from his so-called deathbed illusion. Saryon fumes with absolute rage, asking if he has completely lost his mind by beating up that wealthy heir. She complains desperately that the Thea sect will lose its sponsorship money. Meanwhile, Jin Sowoon feels actual physical pain on his face, feeling the sharp sting and swelling on his skin. He starts wondering why on earth a memory hurts this bad. He backs away in sheer terror, realizing this is not just a flashback. Saryon flashes a pretty dark smile, making it very clear he is in deep trouble with her. She delivers another absolutely devastating blow, sending Jin Sowoon flying through the air for talking nonsense, and he crashes completely unconscious onto the courtyard floor. The other disciples totally panic, screaming that he has actually died. Wait a second, has Jin Sowoon actually traveled all the way back in time? The scene shifts to a quiet infirmary filled with medicine cabinets, where Jin Sowoon lies comfortably in bed with bandages on his cheek. He eventually wakes up inside the quiet infirmary, after being knocked clean out by his younger sister. Jin Sowoon takes advantage of the quiet to organize his chaotic thoughts and review past history. He remembers the demonic cult completely destroying the entire Murim alliance in a devastating war. The Thea sect ended up nearly extinct just for being part of that miserable, bloody alliance. Because he possessed an absolute perfect memory, they locked him inside those deep archives. The alliance leaders gave him the thankless task of memorizing every single book they owned, and he promised to etch every character into his mind to fulfill the desperate order. In exchange, the young warrior begged on his knees for them to spare his beloved sect brothers from the battlefields. But instead, those cruel leaders decided to eliminate him, viewing his massive knowledge as a threat to their future. But after throwing himself into the abyss to die, he somehow woke right back up in his sect courtyard, young and alive. Honestly, you can feel his burning resolve as he prepares to completely change history. Armed with every single martial arts manual preserved in his mind, He can grasp any technique instantly. It was exactly that hidden memory that helped him crush the bully effortlessly. Still resting inside the quiet infirmary, Jin Sowoon can't quite understand how he defeated that arrogant bully so damn easily. He notices with surprise that while his body and clothes went back in time, only that mysterious dragon bracelet from the demonic cult came back with him, and he recalls how it glowed intensely right before he died. While questioning this strange, powerful artifact, he suddenly hears aggressive shouts coming from outside, angrily demanding his presence. Jin Sowoon gets up from bed, curious about the massive commotion unfolding right at the main entrance. Outside, the powerful leader of the Merchant Guild fumes in absolute rage, demanding to find whoever hurt his precious son. The sect leader desperately bows her head, begging the angry man for forgiveness for what happened. Jin Sowoon instantly recognizes the voice of that arrogant merchant who constantly humiliates the Thaya sect without mercy. Hearing the merchant spew venom, Jin Sowoon fumes, seeing his leader beg for forgiveness. This miserable scene brings back bitter memories of the war, where a lack of resources led them straight to slaughter. He painfully remembers watching his close allies fall on the battlefield, helpless and weak. Haunted by these memories, the young man reflects on the true purpose of getting a second chance. He remembers jumping off that high cliff, unable to save his dying friends. Absolutely determined to change their miserable fate, he snaps a toothpick in his teeth with pure resolve. With a fierce look, Jin Sowoon steps out of the room, ready to crash their unfair little argument. He firmly decides he will never let anyone humiliate his beloved Thaya sect ever again. Radiating a pretty intimidating aura, Jin Sowoon decides it is time to teach this wealthy snob a lesson. Outside, the arrogant merchant turns his back while she keeps bowing. He arrogantly warns that he will overlook this just once, but demands absolute submission and respect from them. Suddenly, Jin Sowoon appears on the roof, calmly saying someone was looking for him. He bows mockingly, introducing himself using the exact same insulting words the merchant just barked out. The wealthy merchant and his bodyguard look up in shock, spotting Jin Sowoon standing right on the edge of the roof with a smug grin. The merchant spots the boy who thrashed his son. Instantly, he roars out in absolute fury. Jin Sowoon sighs, mocking the old man by telling him he doesn't get the big deal since their age gap isn't even that huge. The merchant and his servant just stare in utter confusion after the young warrior drops such a ridiculous, provocative joke on them. Jin Sowoon mockingly fake apologizes, taunting the wealthy man by asking if he's going to cry like a baby when his kid gets thrashed at the academy. Enraged, the merchant screams that this worthless, tiny sect exists for one reason only to cater to his son until he enters the academy. Jin Sowoon sarcastically points out that the merchant's spoiled brat already beat up over 10 disciples, leaving them bedridden for days on end. Jin Sowoon scoffs, noting that a kid who gets thrashed by ordinary disciples shouldn't even dream of entering a prestigious academy in the Murim. The merchant turns purple with pure rage, nearly having a total breakdown on the spot, while his frantic bodyguard struggles to hold him back. He screams that he'll cut off every single penny of sponsorship to the sect, demanding to know if this cocky kid can handle the fallout. Jin Sowoon just stares back, not showing a single speck of fear or hesitation even after hearing the threat to pull their funding. The merchant sneers, laughing that the Thaya sect is already dying anyway, and he can easily dump his money on any other school he wants. He sneers with absolute contempt, warning that without his deep pockets, the entire sect will start starving as early as tomorrow morning. Officially, the Thaya sect is part of the legendary 108 sects, but right now, it's just a tragic shadow of its past glory. Yet, these member sects still hold the rare right to send one student directly to the Murim Academy. The merchant's spoiled son only joined the Thaya sect to bypass the grueling entrance exams and steal that easy recommendation spot. The wealthy man paid an insane fortune to buy his kid's way into the sect and lock down that free pass to the academy. Apologize? Not a single chance. Jin Sowoon boldly steps forward, telling the wealthy merchant to go ahead and cancel his sponsorship right now. You've got to love his confidence here, Jin Sowoon grins, grabs the man's wrist, and drops a massively provocative question, taking full charge. He coldly reminds the merchant that there is less than 1 year left before the official student evaluation. Jin Sowoon mocks him ruthlessly, asking if they only came here because every other school rejected his completely useless son. The merchant goes totally frantic, while Jin Sowoon remembers how the sect used to cater to his kid's every whim in his past life. Shaking with pure rage, the corrupt merchant demands to know how a worthless nobody dares to speak to him with such utter disrespect. In the previous timeline, this rich bastard constantly humiliated everyone, claiming his gold was the only thing keeping their dying sect alive. But Jin Sowoon remembers all too well what actually happened in his past life right after that spoiled brat got accepted. Leaning in close to the merchant's ear, Jin Sowoon whispers a chilling, cryptic warning that leaves the man paralyzed with terror. The wealthy man's eyes stretch wide in absolute horror, unable to comprehend how a mere kid could uncover his darkest, deepest secrets. The terrified merchant stands completely frozen in place, watching Jin Sowoon walk away with slow, confident steps without ever looking back. Jin Sowoon knows that begging others for protection is utterly useless, and only carving out his own raw power will guarantee his survival. Furious, humiliated, absolutely seething, the furious merchant tries to charge forward while screaming, but his bodyguard desperately holds him back. That was the brutal, painful lesson the young warrior learned firsthand after experiencing the horror of his own tragic demise. But wait, here's the funny part. Our hero suddenly realizes he hasn't even made a practical plan to get strong quickly. So, Jin Sowoon heads out to a dark, isolated mountain cave where he knows ancient secrets are buried deep inside the dusty spiderwebs. Jin Sowoon focuses his mind entirely on his single goal, getting incredibly powerful, fast. Jin Sowoon knows that the current martial techniques of the Taya sect are way too weak, forcing him to find a better alternative. His only shortcut is finding and consuming the legendary 10,000-year fire ginseng, an ultimate elixir packed with massive internal energy. Luckily, he has the entire elixir register of the Murim Alliance burned into his memory, showing the precise locations of these rare plants. The plan seems easy enough, but when he arrives, he finds a monstrous, giant spider guarding the legendary plant. Facing down this terrifying beast, Jin Sowoon knows that seizing the elixir is his absolutely essential first step toward godhood. Gripping his sword, Jin Sowoon bravely lunges forward, aiming to put the beast down with a single, direct strike using his Taya sect's art. But he halts mid-swing. Suddenly remembering his current weak body, rushing this creature head-on would be nothing short of pure suicide. Instead of risking his sword, Jin Sowoon decides to play it smart, lighting up a torch to exploit the monster's hidden weakness. Smiling with deep cunning, Jin Sowoon recalls a crucial lesson he found while reading thousands of secret manuals in the archive. He knew pure swordplay is not always the best option. When simple, incredibly deadly tricks can get the job done, he lets the webs catch fire. The massive beast instantly begins burning alive, thrashing in absolute, helpless terror. Jin Sowoon calmly watches the beast get consumed by the flames. Feeling incredibly satisfied, he knows that the only thing that actually matters is winning. He celebrates this easy victory, thanking the old records for showing him the monster's fatal weakness to heat. Laughing out loud, Jin Sowoon mockingly calls out the Alliance for locking up such legendary, useful knowledge in dusty old scrolls. Those scrolls detailed how the human-faced spider had a solid shell, but its sticky webs would catch fire instantly. Now that the terrifying beast is totally dead, the path to the precious fire ginseng lies wide open before him. He walks right up to the small rocky crevice where the legendary elixir has grown in secret for thousands of years. Just look at him go, ready to swallow this insane herb and finally absorb all of its pure energy. After devouring the ancient plant, he sits cross-legged to circulate his chi and see how far his internal energy has grown. But his jaw drops in pure disappointment when he realizes the gained energy is way smaller than he actually expected. He literally ate the entire legendary plant, yet his body only managed to absorb a measly, tiny fraction of it. Jin Sowoon groans in deep frustration, blaming his sect's garbage training style for this absolutely pathetic level of absorption. He drops straight to his knees on the cold stone floor, feeling utterly crushed. If his internal energy keeps growing this slowly, his dream of getting strong is completely dead, and the tragic past will simply repeat itself. When he thinks about the brutal war heading his way, he feels way too weak to change anything. Staring at the dark ground, he mutters that with this pathetic level of power, he can never save his beloved sect from being destroyed. He remembers how, in his past life, the weak disciples were used as literal human shields in a bloody massacre. To keep his friends from dying like dogs, he must build real influence in the Alliance before the war starts. Step 1 is getting into the academy within a single year, but his internal energy is still way too low for that. Digging his nails deep into the rock, panic sets in as he realizes he might not even make it past the very first selection round. Jin Sowoon roars in pure anger, terrified that all his painful struggles will go to waste and leave him completely helpless again. As cave water drips around him, he forces his exhausted mind to find another way to gain quick power. Staring at his own reflection in a muddy puddle, he realizes his only option now is to track down a far more powerful legendary elixir. Suddenly, his eyes pop open as he remembers a godly medicine from Manhwa that his rival was destined to get. In his previous life, Jai Qiang's father spent a massive fortune to buy the famous plum blossom pill from Manhwa. But just one day before the brat could swallow it, the legendary pill vanished from their mansion without a single trace. Since the thief was never caught, and this heist hasn't actually happened yet in this timeline, this is his golden ticket, guys, because he knows every thief leaves a trail, and he is going to find it. Diving deep into his endless memories of the Alliance archives, he begins mentally sorting through the reports from back then. Completely focused, Jin Sowoon zeroes in on the monthly records from the Hefei branch to find exactly where the thief went. Thousands of pages and files flash through his brilliant mind at high speed as he analyzes the old records. A massive flood of memories runs through the Alliance archives, connecting every single clue to suspects who were nearby. And boom, he locates the exact file he needs to solve this crime and snatch the pill first. Quietly sorting through mission reports and border logs, he scans his memory banks for any tiny, useful clue. He cross-references facts from hundreds of Alliance files to figure out who actually had the skills and motive to pull this off. His sharp deductions point straight to a notorious, shadowy wanderer who is known for pulling off impossible stealth heists. But he is not alone, as other famous swordsmen pop up as potential accomplices or key players in this plan. Jin Sowoon clasps his hands together in absolute concentration, slowly fitting all the loose pieces of the puzzle together. He smiles, realizing that being treated like a literal living library in his past life is finally paying off big time. Weary of losing, he flashes a confident smirk and decides he is going to steal that plum blossom pill before the real thief can even touch it. Suddenly, the mysterious dragon bracelet wrapped around his wrist begins to glow, releasing a strange, vibrant green aura. Back in the cave, Jin Sowoon is pretty surprised to feel this sudden reaction from the artifact. With the beast dead, Jin Sowoon stares down at his wrist, completely baffled as to why his artifact is suddenly glowing on its own. A strange green energy resembling a coiled dragon winds around his arm, slowly reaching out to cover the dead monster on the floor. The glowing bracelet acts like a magnet, drawing out all the residual power from the spider core. It siphons the creature's life force, trapping the glowing red core in mystical energy before the dragon's aura cleanses it completely. Every trace of deadly poison gets filtered out, leaving behind nothing but the most refined spiritual energy. Jin Sowoon stands there frozen in shock, slowly realizing that this ancient treasure is transferring the monster's power directly to him. A blinding flash of light erupts through the dark cavern, sending panicked birds scattering from the high, rocky cliffs outside. As he absorbs the freshly purified energy, Jin Sowoon feels his internal power levels absolutely skyrocket. The creature's chaotic red aura completely fades away, replaced by a smooth and incredibly steady blue light surrounding his body. Just watch his eyes, they are practically burning with pure power, as his inner energy pool finally explodes outward. Letting out a wild laugh of pure joy, he squeezes his fist, amazed by this massive shortcut in his cultivation. He recalled claiming the Dragon Bracelet as a hard-won trophy, after barely surviving a brutal, desperate battle. Keeping the relic was his only way to honor his fallen brothers. Having no clue it possessed this insane hidden cheat, he throws a test punch, sending beams of raw energy cutting straight through the air. The massive pressure instantly shatters the solid rock wall, sending a violent tremor rumbling straight through the cave system. This incredible bracelet easily cleansed the dark energy, blending it smoothly with his own cultivation path. Grinning, the young warrior realizes the universe has not given up on him, and he finally has the power to change his fate. Meanwhile, over at a lively banquet in town, everyone is gossiping about the fortune a wealthy merchant dropped on a rare plum blossom pill. The bully's father basks in the praise, showing off for the crowd while bragging about the bright future his money just bought for his spoiled son. Young Jai Chiang boasts to the crowd this elixir from Mount Ha is second to none. He continues bragging about how incredibly rare the pill is, while the sect leader's daughter watches the spectacle in quiet, distant silence. Hongsa Ryan can only think irritably about Jin Sowoon, wondering where on earth that idiot boy is hiding himself right now. She recalled their major argument and felt a sharp pang of worry over her stubborn companion's sudden, quiet disappearance. The young woman deeply regrets not stepping into the duel herself to keep Jin Sowoon from getting dragged into this toxic mess. She is convinced he packed up and left the entire sect behind just to protect them. While the annoying brat keeps talking trash about him, Hongsa Ryan's frustration boils over as she silently curses the absolute stupidity of her companions. Suddenly, a young disciple comes charging into the area, excitedly carrying plates stacked high with delicious treats snatched from the party. Out of nowhere, the kid slams right into Jai Chiang, sending our favorite snob crashing down in the most satisfying way. The children gather around Hongsa Ryan, offering her the stolen food while the rich brat whines on the floor, completely bruised and ignored. Storming off, the humiliated bully mutters under his breath about getting brutal revenge on everyone once the party is over. Hongsa Ryan smiles warmly at the little ones, knowing they have been starving and really need to get some good food. One of the girls playfully pokes her forehead, teasing her big sister for daydreaming about her beloved Jin Sowoon yet again. Blushing a deep crimson, she stumbles over her words as she tries to scold them for teasing her like that. But the boys just laugh, setting aside choice pieces of pork and sweet rice cakes, specifically for when Jin Sowoon comes home. Witnessing how much these sweet kids truly love her senior brother warms her heart, but she quickly decides to break the emotional mood. She playfully snatches a plate and starts stuffing her face, teasing the little kids right there in the courtyard. Laughing, she warns them that if they do not eat quickly, she will eat every single bite herself and leave them with nothing. The kids fall into a hilarious panic, instantly stuffing their faces as fast as they can. As they laugh together under the setting sun, Hongsa Ryan silently wonders where Jin Sowoon could be, leaving everyone behind to miss him so much. The sun slowly sinks below the horizon while she lets out a quiet, heavy sigh. She calls her companion a total idiot in her mind as night blankets the sect, the bright full moon setting the stage for the warrior's eventual return. Meanwhile, back at the luxurious banquet, the wealthy merchant raises a booming toast with his guests to celebrate buying the priceless pill. Jaiqiang gulps down wine, completely enjoying his golden moment in the hall. He is totally clueless about the dark fate waiting for him, while graceful dancers perform in the center, keeping the wild party going late into the night. Outside, a masked figure slips silently across the rooftops of the massive compound. The wanderer Zhujiang Mok successfully breaches the high-security vault and makes a clean getaway with the goods. Clutching the red box, holding the precious pill, the agile thief bounds effortlessly through the dark night, absolutely thrilled to have secured such a legendary prize. Dropping quietly into the deep forest, he laughs to himself, quietly celebrating his perfect, flawless heist. Tearing off his mask, the intruder laughs at their pathetic security and eagerly prepares to examine the legendary elixir. As he pops open the ornate box, the glowing plum blossom pill radiates with brilliant light and an intoxicating scent. Zhujiang Mok practically drools, drinking in that rich fragrance and feeling the concentrated, raw energy pulsing from the rare medicine. He cackles, already dreaming of mastering a godly martial art, entirely unaware that Jin Sowoon is watching him from the trees. But before he can even take a step, a cold blade flashes out of the darkness, cutting the criminal down with brutal efficiency. His bleeding body collapses onto the dirt. The mysterious swordsman clad in white steps forward, sheathing his weapon as he snatches the red box from the cold hand. He mutters mockingly that he really needs this medicine too, his dangerous presence heavy in the cool air. The brand new killer smiles with deep satisfaction, claiming the prize without breaking a sweat. He coldly justifies the murder, believing his hunger for power excuses any sin. Gripping the box, he turns to leave, completely oblivious that he's walking straight into Jin Sowoon's trap. Check this out. To see how he pulled this off, we have to go back a few days when Jin Sowoon visited a local shop filled with hunting gear. A rugged hunter greets the clever young strategist at the counter. The shopkeeper studies Jin Sowoon carefully, immediately realizing this is no ordinary customer from around these parts. Jin Sowoon walks deeper into the shop, casually mentioning he heard the old merchant carries some pretty rare specialty items. With a calm smile, the young man gets straight to the point, asking if they have traps designed for catching humans. The owner is amused by the bizarre question, laughing at his sheer boldness while keeping busy with his counterwork. He boasts about stocking gear for small rabbits and massive bears, but flatly denies selling things to catch people. Jin Sowoon tosses down a heavy pouch of coins and demands their largest bear traps, not caring at all about saving the pelt. With a sinister smirk, he demands an ultra-sensitive mechanism that triggers at the absolute lightest touch, snapping shut with brutal, bone-crushing power. Jin Sowoon is looking for something that will send his target straight to the afterlife. The merchant grows pretty suspicious and highly concerned about the pitch-black motives of this innocent-looking kid. Back in the present, the swordsman in white admires the box, celebrating just how ridiculously easy this theft was. He mocks the dead thief, saying he expected a much tougher fight from someone so famous in the martial world. Smiling arrogantly at his stolen prize, he completely fails to notice that his own partner has just arrived at the scene. Another swordsman slips from the shadows, praising his partner for putting down their rival with such impressive speed. Turns out, they are both part of the famous 5 swordsmen of Dian Kong, and they laugh in relief after worrying for nothing. They quickly decide to hide the body, making the corpse vanish so the local authorities simply register him as missing. The two killers can't help but take a greedy look at the legendary ManhwaRecap medicine. As they pop open the case, the intense glow of the pill lights up their greedy, awestruck faces. Squeezed right between the two of them, a masked Jin Sowoon suddenly pops up, whispering that the medicine is amazing. Too bad it only serves one. They just stare at each other. Dead silence. The two killers are left in absolute shock by this terrifying intruder standing right between them. Suddenly, the swordsman lashes out, but Jin Sowoon snatches the box in a blur, dodging the deadly strike. Dangling the box in their faces, our protagonist flashes a mocking smirk from behind his mask, leaving his rivals utterly fuming. In a complete rage, the two swordsmen unsheathe their weapons and charge with full force to butcher the masked boy. The lead attacker slashes furiously, yelling out that this is the boy's punishment for trying to steal something far above his station. Jin Sowoon retreats laughing, mockingly asking if the Dian Kang sect teaches their disciples to rob people and then call others thieves. He shouts right back, reminding them that they literally murdered the first thief just to get their hands on this medicine. Suddenly, the other swordsman drops from the canopy, aiming a devastating downward slash to split Jin Sowoon in two. The blade slams down, violently shattering the ground as Jin Sowoon dodges the impact with perfect grace. Running through the woods, Jin Sowoon laughs at his pursuer, casually warning him to watch his step. The very next second, The swordsman steps directly onto a massive bear trap, which snaps shut with absolute, bone-crushing force. Absolute shock hits him as the brutal metal teeth sink deep, crushing his leg bone in pure agony. Jin Sowoon looks back with a smug grin, thoroughly enjoying the spectacular results of his trap. Cold sweat pours off the injured swordsman as he stares down at his ruined leg. He lets out an absolute blood-curdling shriek of pain that echoes through the trees, completely shattering the quiet stillness of the moonlit night. His partner rushes over in a total panic to help, while Jin Sowoon casually reminds them that he warned them. The trapped swordsman spits in fury, calling the kid a cowardly rat for relying on such cheap, dirty tricks. Absolutely furious, he draws his sword, and demanding this masked intruder reveal his face immediately. But Jin Sowoon just calmly kneels, picking up a heavy stone while staring down his furious attacker without a single hint of fear. And here comes the real disrespect. He asks if they seriously expect him to do a formal introduction with his sect and master. Flipping the rock in his hand, he laughs, telling them that those cheesy, cliché tropes are way past their expiration date. The stone drops right onto another hidden trap beneath the dry leaves, triggering the metal jaws with a violent snap. As the trap fires, the swordsman finally realizes that this masked kid is the one who took the precious elixir. Jin Sowoon points a finger at the duo, coldly stating that they murdered the original thief and are headed straight to prison. He remembers exactly how he put the pieces together. When the thief disappeared without a trace, he realized no new major powerhouse had popped up in the area. So he tracked down anyone who had a sudden, unexplained jump in internal energy, leading him straight to these two killers who split the medicine after their dirty deed. The two killers yell out in absolute shock, terrified that this masked stranger knows exactly who they are and what they did. Jin Sowoon coldly nods, calling them out as supposedly respected martial artists belonging to the prestigious Dying Kang sect. Desperate, the swordsman tries to threaten him, demanding if he is really brave enough to face the wrath of the Grand Alliance. Jin Sowoon just laughs, asking since when a couple of thieving killers had the nerve to cry about someone else stealing from them. Losing his mind with rage, the attacker charges forward, swinging with blind fury, desperate to crush the arrogant kid who is laughing at him. He slams his weapon into the dirt, setting off the hidden traps around him while screaming that these pathetic tricks will never work. The heavy impact blasts several hidden traps into the air, but Jin Sowoon easily glides backward, dodging the flying debris. The killer wears a smug grin, totally convinced he just ruined the kid's entire trap strategy by tearing up the earth. Jin Sowoon immediately plays along, acting absolutely terrified as the traps crash down, pretending he got caught completely off guard. Feeling smug, the two killers rush forward together, shouting that they will rip off his mask and tear him to shreds. Our main character stays perfectly calm in the dark, watching the two attackers make their desperate, clumsy moves. Jin Sowoon suddenly spins around and darts through the trees, baiting the furious criminals to sprint right after him. One of the killers yells a warning, shouting that the area the kid is heading into is probably packed with hidden traps. The other guy just laughs, telling him they can easily bypass them by stepping exactly where the kid's footprints are on the ground. Proud of their supposedly genius idea, the two killers leap forward, placing their feet exactly inside Jin Sowoon's fresh footprints on the dirt trail. But wait, watch how they fall for it. Their feet land directly inside the footprints, Jin Sowoon deliberately left behind on the thick layer of dry leaves. Laughing like maniacs, the killers brag that his pathetic tricks are nothing against their superior brains. Just then, Jin Sowoon pulls off a slick backflip, landing gracefully just a few feet away. He skids to a stop on the dirt, turning around to stare down the killers with cold, absolute contempt in his eyes. The killers confidently mock him, boasting that they have got him cornered, and this is where his short life comes to a brutal end. But the very millisecond their feet hit those marked footprints on the forest floor, Jin Sowoon's eyes flash with pure malice. Knowing his mind games worked beautifully, those footprints were actually the exact spots where his traps were hidden, waiting for the perfect amount of pressure. Under his dark mask, our main character grins, thoroughly amused by how stupid these guys are. Two massive bear traps snap shut at the exact same time, violently crushing their legs. Blood sprays everywhere as the killers scream in absolute agony, their leg bones shattering instantly under the heavy metal. The horrific sound of metal crushing bone and the scent of fresh blood cut through the quiet forest, leaving the wounded pair completely horrified. Completely beaten, they collapse onto the dirt. They groan in agonizing pain, unable to process how they fell so easily for this trap. Jin Sowoon walks up with total composure, mockingly noting he is quite surprised they actually tried to follow his path. He points out that dozens of traps lie side by side, meaning missing his exact path by a single millimeter is fatal. The trembling swordsman calls him a complete lunatic, realizing this kid walked perfectly through a deadly minefield of hidden traps. Desperate, the dying man begs to know how anyone could navigate such a crazy path without making one tiny mistake. Drawing his blade, the young warrior answers that it is pretty simple when you are blessed with a flawless divine memory. He declares this perfect mind is the only true gift the heavens decided to grant him in his entire lifetime. With one lightning-fast strike, Jin Sowoon cuts down both criminals, ending the threat right then and there under the bright moonlight. Somewhere else, a massive traditional estate gleams in the sun while powerful leaders gather. A quiet strategist slowly sips hot tea, while closely analyzing the latest reports from the eastern border. This is Juj Someon, chief strategist of the alliance, who openly wonders if the Thai sect still deserves its elite rank. Elder Namung Tone confirms the worrying news, noting that several formidable rival factions have suddenly risen to power. He directly suggests that they should replace the fading Thai sect with a much stronger powerhouse like Chug. Juj Someon notes the elder is backing the Iron Sword sect, confirming those old rumors while serving tea with a fake smile. The elder keeps trying to flatter him, unaware the strategist already knows about his secret support for that rival faction. Quietly, the strategist points out that an official group can only be stripped of its rank for a truly massive violation. With malicious intent, the elder hints that the Thai sect is committing serious violations with their coveted admission spot. He straight up accuses them of turning their noble recommendation privilege into a highly profitable, greedy business. Putting down his cup, Juj Someon questions whether this ancient faction is truly abusing its status in such a dirty way. Wearing a dark smile, the elder claims they are doing everything simply to feed their bottomless greed, as birds sing in the trees while this quiet political plot unfolds. Following that heavy accusation, the entire garden goes quiet as a heavy, suffocating tension settles over them. Playing dumb, the guy begs the strategist not to misunderstand him. Insisting he has absolutely no interest in the spot himself, he pauses dramatically, staring deep into the strategist's eyes to really sell his hypocritical act. He argues that such special rights should belong only to those who actually bled during the hardest times. The hypocrite acts completely heartbroken, sighing that it brings him deep sorrow to see the grand values of their alliance fade away. He offers another cup with mock respect, insisting they must act immediately to protect the absolute integrity of their alliance. Meanwhile, inside his inn room at night, Jin Sowoon finishes his breakthrough process and finally takes a breather. After fully absorbing the rare medicine, the youth feels a surge of pure, refined energy coursing freely through his meridians. Meditating shirtless, a bright blue aura wraps around his torso. It rapidly boosts his cultivation base. Sweating heavily from the sheer strain of his meditation, he finally absorbs every drop of the powerful pill. He snaps his eyes open, a sharp light flashing. The young warrior feels an insane surge of power flooding his entire body. Standing up, he finds himself completely re-energized, overflowing with a strength he has never felt in this lifetime. Amazed, get ready for this, he realizes that single pill just gifted him over 30 years of pure internal energy. Overjoyed, he realizes he has already surpassed all the cultivation power from his entire past life. Throwing on his clothes, Jin Sowoon heads down the wooden stairs, eager to grab a massive meal. Spotting the inn worker asleep at a wooden table, Jin Sowoon walks over, politely waking him to order some food. The startled clerk jumps up, feeling instantly relieved to see his mysterious guest finally leave that room after several whole days. Jin Sowoon explains that he has been pretty busy, urgently asking the young worker to bring him any food available. The tired clerk hesitates, pointing out that since it is incredibly late at night, the tavern kitchen is already closed. The worker immediately runs off to wake the cook, while Jin Sowoon smiles, thinking that money really does solve everything. He recalls with satisfaction how he used his Dragon Bracelet to secure a pretty massive amount of coins. See, the artifact does not just affect monsters, it can harvest vital energy from basically any living creature. It completely absorbs their essence, knocking the beasts out cold, while leaving their valuable fur totally undamaged. Jin Sowoon brought 4 perfect, pristine tiger hides to the local merchant, leaving the old shopkeeper absolutely speechless. Sitting back at the table, Jin Sowoon realizes that while making money is great, this new power of his comes with some pretty massive risks. Stealing and absorbing another person's strength is a forbidden, highly dangerous power that the entire martial world absolutely despises. If anyone catches him using this absorption ability, they will immediately brand it as an evil art of the demonic cult. The Murim Alliance strictly bans this kind of absorption, and his mysterious bracelet functions exactly like that forbidden taboo art. If anyone uncovers this secret, his entire Thai sect will face total destruction, meaning he has to keep this power hidden at all costs. The young server runs back with plates of food, quickly snapping Jin Sowoon out of his deep thoughts. With eyes sparkling from hunger, Jin Sowoon prepares to devour the massive feast made just for him. While happily slurping down his noodles, Jin Sowoon notices the server is still standing there, silently watching him eat. The curious server asks if Jin Sowoon heard the wild rumors spreading around town, mentioning that the Jiriwong Merchant Guild threw a massive banquet to celebrate buying a legendary pill. And get this, the server reveals that the precious elixir was stolen right in the middle of the feast. Jin Sowoon fakes absolute shock, as the server praises the thief as a true pro, warning that the Alliance already sent investigators to track them down. Hearing about those investigators, Jin Sowoon immediately chokes on his noodles, coughing violently all over the table. The panicked server quickly hands him some water, and once Jin Sowoon recovers, he casually asks for more details about the investigation. Screaming internally, Jin Sowoon nervously asks if these investigators have managed to find any clues or lock anyone up yet. He desperately realizes that if they actually locked someone up, it is going to cause some massive trouble. Thankfully, the server reassures him, explaining that the thief's tracks vanished completely, and the Alliance investigators couldn't find a single solid suspect. Relieved that nobody got caught, Jin Sowoon lets out a fake sigh, acting completely sympathetic and saying the owner must be absolutely devastated. The server adds that while that party ended early, luckily, another massive celebration is about to kick off in town. Jin Sowoon freezes completely when the server reveals that this new party is being hosted by their sworn rivals, the Iron Sword sect. The server explains that the rival leader is celebrating his 60th birthday with a massive, 7-day party for the entire region. Jin Sowoon immediately remembers his past life, knowing this exact birthday party was a highly painful, defining moment. Heartbroken, he recalls the terrible tragedy that struck his father in his previous timeline. During that exact banquet, the vicious leader of the Iron Sword sect completely humiliated the Tai sect, leaving Jin Sowoon's father bleeding on the cold floor. His proud father faced a brutal humiliation that completely shattered his honor. In front of the entire martial world, he was forced to kneel and beg for mercy from that cruel Iron Sword sect leader. Back then, Jin Sowoon could only watch helplessly, feeling utterly desperate as he failed to protect his beloved father's dignity. To make it even worse, all of that horrific shame happened because of a stupid mistake Jin Sowoon himself made. In the present, he clenches his fist in pure anger. Feeling his blood absolutely boil at the bitter memory, Jin Sowoon swears to himself that this time he will completely avoid the Iron Sword sect. Thanking the server for the food, he stands up with a highly determined look on his face, ready to take control of his own destiny. He walks away with firm, confident steps, completely ignoring the server calling out to him. Fully locked in on his oath, he vows that he will never let his father suffer such humiliation ever again. But in this second life, plans rarely hold up, because the very next second, a massive, heavy blade comes swinging straight down at Jin Sowoon with absolute fury. Now, Jin Sowoon finds himself standing right in the middle of that rival banquet, locked in a brutal clash with the grandson of the Iron Sword leader. Stunned, he stands there wondering how on earth he ended up in the exact place he desperately tried to avoid. Flashing back a few days, the scene cuts to the Tai sect courtyard, where the young disciples are training under the blazing sun. Suddenly, Junpyo collapses onto the ground, complaining that his tired legs just can't take this heavy training pace anymore. The 3 sect brothers rest together after finishing their 100 repetitive sword strikes. Gulping down some water, Lee Yunho highly doubts that doing 100 downward strikes in this brutal heat will actually help their sword skills. Junpyo playfully teases his brother, and Lee Yunho turns red, fiercely denying that he ever admitted to admiring Jin Sowoon for beating up the town bully. They share a laugh until one of the younger disciples curiously asks where Jin Sowoon could have gone after his sudden disappearance. The youngest shows concern, pointing out that their senior brother has never vanished for an entire week like this before. They start wondering if he fled out of fear after beating up the wealthy heir of the town's strongest merchant guild. Their worry deepens as they realize that Jin Sowoon might have actually abandoned the sect just to protect them from any dangerous revenge. La Yunho admits that despite being pretty annoying, Jin Sowoon is a good guy when suddenly, they hear footsteps at the main entrance. As Jin Sowoon walks back into the sect courtyard, a little disciple spots him and flashes a bright smile. Under the warm sunlight, Jin Sowoon crosses the gates of the Taeyul sect while carrying a bulky bag. He knows skipping the banquet will save his father from embarrassment, but those endless insults from the rival sect still sting. Pushing the bitter thoughts aside, the young man steels his resolve. There is no way he is stepping foot inside that enemy feast. Staring up at his beloved sect's sign, he quietly promises to protect everyone from whatever dark dangers lie ahead. Honestly, it is not just about him. Absolutely no one from the Taeyul sect should go to that enemy leader's birthday bash. But while he is trying to cook up a solid excuse, some younger disciples suddenly come sprinting right toward him. Jin Sowoon greets them with a grin, teasingly asking if they missed him so much they just had to run out. The kids excitedly mob him from all sides, begging him to teach them that mind-blowing technique from his last big duel. Smiling warmly, Jin Sowoon pats their heads and asks if they have been behaving themselves during their daily sect training. But of course, the peace never lasts. Look who decided to crash the party. It is Jin Tae-san, the hallmaster, and Jin Sowoon's father, demanding to know exactly where his son has been hiding. Seeing his beloved father alive and healthy instantly brings a rush of emotional tears to Jin Sowoon's eyes. He throws himself into a tight, emotional embrace, silently celebrating this beautiful second chance at life. Annoyed, his father chops him over the head, assuming this sudden dramatic display is just a trick to avoid a lecture. Jin Taesan grumbles that the mess almost got their sect kicked out. But before Hong can tease him, a very angry Jai Chiang stomps over. The spoiled rival has finally found out that Jin Sowoon is back. Pointing a finger, he accuses Jin Sowoon of using underhanded tricks in training and demands a rematch right now. Jin Sowoon just lets out a highly sarcastic smirk, amused that his rival is practically begging for another beating. He covers his face with both hands, hilariously pretending to be blind as he mocks the arrogant bully standing right before him. In a comically sarcastic voice, Jin Sowoon jokes that the stolen elixir's massive aura is simply too bright to look at. Jai Chiang's face turns bright red with embarrassment and rage at the brutal reminder of the stolen medicine his family lost. As the bully stomps away in fury, Hong asks why he had to bring up that pill, while Jin Taesan also watches his son's strange attitude with deep suspicion. Smiling brightly, Jin Sowoon unzips his massive bag. Inside is a mountain of expensive treats, and he eagerly passes them out to the thrilled younger disciples. Hong complains that he should have bought actual meals, but Jin Sowoon tells her to shut up and eat. Finding out he spent his hard-earned money on gifts leaves her completely stunned. She reassures him that the merchant guild will not trouble them anymore, and gently tells him to stop carrying every burden alone. Staring straight into his eyes, the girl strictly demands that he never vanish again without warning like he did last time. Flustered by her genuine concern, Jin Sowoon turns red and looks back at her right there in the courtyard. He is honestly pretty confused since he never feared the guild anyway, but he happily decides to roll with her sweet affection. And here is the kicker: his dad casually reveals they are all going to that exact banquet. Jin Sowoon instantly panics the decision is locked in, and skipping out now would look like a direct declaration of war. Since there is no easy way out of this trap, the young man realizes he needs a clever new plan to handle the situation. While Jin Sowoon broods, Jin Taesan suddenly turns to him with a dead serious expression. The father firmly declares that he will face the Iron Sword Sect's banquet alone, ordering everyone else to stay behind. Jin Sowoon is stunned by his father's protective stance, wondering why on earth he would walk into that trap alone. Just then, their youngest disciple runs up holding a small pouch filled with dried rice cakes. Both Jin Sowoon and Hong freeze when they realize these treats came directly from Jairi's guild. The shy kid explains that he carefully saved these snacks for days just so he could share them with his favorite older brother. This pure, sweet gesture deeply touches Jin Sowoon, showing him the raw loyalty and love of his sect family. He flashes a warm, genuinely touched smile, realizing how truly blessed he is to have these incredible people around him. Without missing a beat, he snatches the stale treat and swallows it whole, leaving Hong standing there in absolute disbelief. Mouth completely stuffed, Jin Sowoon loudly praises the delicious taste. The little disciple dramatically whines that half of it was supposed to be his. Laughing, Jin Sowoon apologizes and offers his giant stash of luxury treats as a trade. The kid's eyes light up with pure joy at his massive mountain of premium snacks. While the kids happily bicker over their treats in the background, Jin Sowoon turns to Hong Saryeon with a dead serious look. He knows that skipping this feast won't stop the Iron Sword Sect from hunting them down. The young warrior knows that running away solves absolutely nothing, and escaping your problems is never the right path. Can you blame him? He refuses to let his family and the kids keep enduring these awful humiliations. With a confident, fearless grin, Jin Sowoon boldly declares they are going to the Iron Sword Sect banquet. On the day of the rival leader's grand birthday bash, a massive caravan of guests floods the lavish temple. The Taeul sect group files through the stone corridors in a single line, under the sharp eyes of rival martial artists. Right in front of the Iron Sword Sect gates, the hall leader stops to drop a very stern warning. Kang Chesio, master of the Gwawa Hall, loudly demands that absolutely nobody start trouble or act like a fool. Jin Sowoon just chuckles, whispering that the master is staring right at him like some annoyed, personal babysitter. The master grumbles that the kid is already plotting trouble, asking why he even begged so hard to tag along. Jin Sowoon immediately fires back what should he do if those bastards pick a fight first. Watching members of Jiryong's guild walk past, the boy grumbles that the master sounds exactly like his own father. As Jinta walks silently up ahead, Jin Sowoon notices his father looking incredibly downhearted ever since he learned his son was coming. Taking a quick smack on the head from the master, Jin Sowoon promises to keep cool, even if they insult their ancestors. Suddenly, their group halts in the corridor as they notice another pack of arrogant warriors marching up and blocking them. These rival sect members arrogantly demand that the Taeul sect get the hell out of their way so they can pass. Kang Chesio instantly loses his temper, shouting back that they have absolutely no right to cut the line here. The Taeul master firmly grabs the rude guy's shoulder, demanding some respect, but the punk just smirks right back. The rival's smug companion calmly steps in, claiming they traveled from afar and sent someone ahead to hold their spot. The arrogant rich boy introduces himself, bragging that he is Gu Yonga, son of the powerful Cheongjuk Manor Lord. Instantly recognizing that massive name, a wealthy merchant nearby gets terrified and decides to back away to avoid any trouble. The cowardly Gyeong merchant bows and apologizes, immediately stepping aside to let the elite Cheongjuk Manor group pass. Watching this circus from the corner of his eye, Jin Sowoon immediately recognizes these snobs from his past life. He remembers clearly how Gu Yonga became best buddies with Jai Cheong, proving once again that garbage always attracts garbage. Back then, these two spoiled brats used their massive family wealth to treat the Taeyul sect disciples like garbage. Gu Yonga scoffs at the trembling merchant and maliciously starts mocking the incredibly plain robes of the Taeyul sect. Nearby, martial artists whisper in deep disdain, doubting the Taeyul sect even deserves to stay on the mountain peak. Just as they sneer that the Iron Sword sect will replace them, Jin Sowoon appears out of nowhere and drops his hands on their shoulders. Wearing a smug smile, the boy acts like he has never even heard of that manor, openly insulting their faction. Gu Yonga spins around in absolute shock and rage, unable to believe a total nobody would dare disrespect him like this. The surrounding crowd turns pale at the kid's sheer audacity, while Jin Sowoon casually acts like he is trying to remember the name. And honestly, you have to love his savage humor, saying he heard of that manor in a smelly public restroom. The entire crowd is absolutely horrified by the wild, unbelievably bizarre insult delivered by this young Taeyul sect disciple. Trembling with pure hatred, Gu Yonga grips the hilt of his sword, ready to murder the boy on the spot. The young master of the manor charges forward, striking out with blind fury to defend his family honor, absolutely losing his mind over the insult. Suddenly, heavy steps echo out, and an authoritative female voice cuts right through the chaos. Gu Yonga freezes his blade mere inches from Jin Sowoon's face, but our hero does not even blink. The crowd gasps in absolute awe as they recognize the famous Iron Sword sect warrior walking toward them. The elegant young woman walks closer, asking if they all came to her grandfather's birthday party just to pick fights. It is Song Moran, granddaughter of the Iron Sword sect leader, and she immediately puts a stop to the violence. Jin Sowoon quietly watches Song Moran, recalling the recent history of her sect, which was established not long ago. Both sects were based in Hefei, and since two suns cannot share the same sky, their rivalry was inevitable. The rivals desperately wanted the peak spot belonging to the Taeyul sect, and tension had been building for years. In his past life, Jin Sowoon once fought the rival leader's grandson for insulting his sect, accepting a duel even though he knew he would lose. Just to stop that brutal beatdown, his father had to kneel and beg for mercy in front of hundreds. Looking at Seong Moran, Jin Sowoon realizes that the tragic past is starting to play out all over again. With a calm and quiet voice, the talented young lady from the Iron Sword sect asks what is causing this massive scene. Gwanga keeps his blade aimed right at Jin Sowoon, frantically stuttering out quick excuses to his beautiful granddaughter. Blushing furiously under her gaze, the pathetic attacker tries to shift every ounce of the blame onto Jin Sowoon. He lies that holding places in line is forbidden, demanding that the Taeyul sect group get to the very back. Instead, Seong Moran bows deeply, offering the Taeyul group a highly sincere apology for this terrible rudeness. To make amends right there, she personally offers to escort the Taeyul delegation inside as special guests, leading them forward. The group heads straight toward the main banquet hall. But of course, someone immediately tries to hit on her. Jia Chili-young keeps showering her with endless, cheesy compliments as they walk. Seong Moran merely gives a polite, distant smile, mentioning that the grandmasters are already waiting inside. But wait, Jin Sowoon remembers the original timeline. In his past life, she never approached them. Did we just watch him rewrite history? Stepping inside the massive banquet hall, Leader Hong is completely blown away by its sheer scale. But Jin Sowoon notices it is way larger than in his past life, instantly suspecting there is a dark motive behind this invitation. Inside, hundreds of guests are already drinking and laughing uproariously as the massive celebration kicks into high gear. Right at the center of attention, Old Master Seong is laughing and drinking heavily with the crowd. Right beside him, young sect leader Seong Jutak watches everyone with a cold, highly calculating gaze. A wealthy representative from Jiryong immediately rushes over, bowing and throwing endless, shameless flattery at the powerful hosts. Seong Jutak laughs heartily, returning the greeting as he warmly welcomes the young and rich Jia Chili-young. This sect leader jokes that he only rejected the kid as a disciple because of his family status. The Taeyul disciples grit their teeth in quiet rage, forced to listen to these blatant insults against their beloved sect. Stepping in, Seong Moran smoothly cuts off the toxic talk and formally introduces the Taeyul sect delegation. Seong Jutek immediately locks a cold, incredibly hostile glare onto the Taeyul guests, scanning them with deep contempt. Out of sheer respect, the Taeyul masters bow and formally introduce themselves to the hosts. Staring directly at their leader, Seong Jutek sneers that 20 whole years have passed since that old incident. Hearing this, Jin Sowoon grows highly suspicious, wondering what on earth happened 20 years ago. Seong Jutak dryly asks about Leader Hong's health, demanding to know who these young disciples even are. He scans the boys with total disgust, smugly declaring that their talent is absolutely pathetic. That young leader openly insults Taiyul's teaching methods, scoffing that they should just hand their disciples over to Geryong. Seong Moran silently watches the exchange, clearly annoyed by the constant jabs thrown at the Taeyul sect. Laughing mockingly, the man claims that under Taeyul, these kids will just end up as third-rate trash. Suddenly, Jin Sowoon steps forward with a razor-sharp comment that makes the arrogant leader snap his head around. He calmly points out that listening to the man talk is starting to feel incredibly painful. Completely losing his cool, Seongju-taek roars in absolute fury, demanding to know what the brat just said. Jin Sowoon puts on a fake apologetic face, claiming he only meant to think it, but his mouth slipped. He boldly points out how incredibly disrespectful it is to sit there and insult the Taeyul sect for no reason. Boldly mocking the leader, he says anyone would get annoyed by his bad manners, before offering another highly sarcastic bow. Seong Moran desperately holds back a laugh, thoroughly impressed by the massive nerve of this kid confronting her father. Way in the back of the massive hall, the powerful patriarch of the Iron Sword sect narrows his eyes, paying close attention to the boy's bold attitude. And guys, look at the young leader shaking with pure rage right now. With a smug look, Jin Sowoon politely clasps his hands, asking if the leader will accept his sincere apology. Blinded by absolute hatred, Seongju-taek squeezes his teacup so hard the delicate ceramic begins to audibly crack. Snapping completely, he grabs the heavy teapot, roaring in fury as he prepares to slam it into the kid. Suddenly, a panicked servant bursts in, yelling that the Murim alliance strategist has officially arrived. The sudden news freezes his hand, forcing the raging leaders to instantly drop the argument to greet their massive guest. Every single guest in the hall gets hyped, rushing toward the entrance to pay respects to the high-ranking envoy. The massive banquet hall clears out in seconds as dozens of faction leaders scramble out the door together. Jai Chiliong frantically runs to keep up with his father, while Jin Sowoon and Hong watch the hilarious rush. The Iron Sword Patriarch barks orders to bring out the valuable gifts prepared for the feast. Furious that his spotlight was interrupted, Seongju-taek turns away, while Jin Sowoon just shrugs with total indifference. Hong asks if they should follow them inside, but Jin Sowoon wants to snag a great seat in the empty hall first. Look at this, a hand suddenly grabs his collar from behind with warning force. Kang Chaseok harshly scolds him. What got into you to disrespect a rival leader like that? Jin Sowoon explains the master was about to draw. Their instigator wanted that exact excuse to strike. He begs his master not to act recklessly. The enemy is clearly trying to force a new pretext. Then he takes the chance to ask, what actually happened 20 years ago that was so serious? Jin Taesin lowers his head with a heavy, sorrowful look upon hearing the direct question from his own son. Kang Chaseok hesitates too, proving that talking about the past brings nothing but deep pain to their sect. Seong Moran suddenly appears with a warm smile, inviting them to relax inside the guest quarters and instantly changing the subject. Kang Chaseok eagerly accepts the offer in relief, rushing ahead to secure a prime table in the hall. They get a spectacular VIP table. It features a prime view of a massive lotus pond. It is loaded with exquisite dishes, exotic delicacies that the Taeyul sect could normally never afford. Finding this treatment odd, Jin Sowoon asks why Seong Moran is sitting here instead of the main banquet. She laughs softly. Her sect's sexist rules completely exclude women from all important matters. After all, her brother Seong Mohyun is viewed as the prime heir to the warrior clan, while Seong Moran is known as the charming she-wolf, possessing incredible talent despite all the internal discrimination. Her brother grew up hogging all the sect's resources simply because he was chosen to inherit the leadership. On the flip side, Seong Moran is a natural prodigy who started training late but still earned a spot at the academy. While devouring a chicken leg, Jin Sowoon remarks that this special treatment might actually benefit the Taeyul sect. She chuckles gracefully and playfully, asks if the young man is interested in her since he is asking so many questions. Jin Sowoon replies he was just repeating common rumors, and Seong Moran formally apologizes for her father's rude behavior. She suggests her father acted out because of Jai Chiliong's broken contract, hinting that he should return to the sect. Pausing his meal, Jin Sowoon stares directly at the young woman and says he has a highly important question for her. He asks point-blank what the Iron Sword sect's true intention is. And you can see it in her eyes. Seong Moran just wears an enigmatic smile, keeping their real plans shrouded in deep mystery. The girl responds with pure irony, asking if banquets aren't meant precisely for gathering a festive crowd together. Jin Sowoon coldly counters by reminding her that throughout history, some of the greatest assassinations occurred at parties. Seong Moran narrows her eyes in tense silence. Realizing this young man cannot be fooled by sweet talk, she laughs charmingly, praises Jin Sowoon, and mentions she must take her leave to attend to her other duties. With an elegant and graceful gesture, she bids farewell. This leaves the martial artists deep in thought. As she walks away, the Taeyul sect group remains at the table, quietly watching the movement around the hall. Jin Sowoon tries talking to his sister, but Hong turns away angrily, still sulking over the situation. Outside, voices constantly praise Seong Moran's extraordinary beauty. While the youth party continues in full swing, several young martial artists from other sects completely surround her, desperately trying to convince her to join their table, vying for the heiress's attention and competing over who gets to sit right beside the legendary beauty. A servant girl suddenly arrives, completely out of breath and calling out Seong Moran's name, effectively interrupting the annoying young men. The servant searches the courtyard, unaware that Seong Moran stealthily scaled the roof to escape the crowd, and is now relaxing up there. The young woman lets out a relieved sigh, muttering that there is not a single decent man at this entire party. To her, the only interesting guy there is Jin Sowoon, who refuses to bow his head to anyone, not even her father. Intrigued, she wonders to herself whether that young man is simply fearless or completely insane. Suddenly, something catches her attention on the ground below, drawing her curious gaze. From the roof, she spots the Taeul sect leader's daughter heading toward the hallway, closely accompanied by Jai Chiliong. She recalls that the younger martial artists planned a separate private gathering for the new generation tonight. Finding it incredibly odd to see only those two heading to the meeting, Seong Moran wonders why Jin Sowoon stayed behind. Realizing new trouble is brewing, she smiles with pure, excited anticipation. Meanwhile, a sudden knock sounds on the guest room door. From inside, Jin Sowoon asks who is there. Opening the door, he is stunned. He stands face to face with a highly unexpected visitor. It is Seong Moran. In total astonishment, he asks what brings a rival sect's heiress to his quarters. The young woman invites him to join the young talent banquet, aimed at strengthening bonds between their respective sects. Jin Sowoon politely declines. He claims that everyone from his sect is completely exhausted from the day's events. Hearing this, she chuckles mischievously. She mentions seeing a very different scene in the courtyard just moments ago. Specifically, she saw Hong Saryeon walking all by herself toward that gathering. Instantly, the dark memories of his past life flash back. That exact gathering ended in a tragic, family-ruining duel. He realizes with absolute dread that this is the exact tragedy he spent all day trying to prevent. Now we all know he can't let her walk into that trap alone, so he is forced to act. Upon hearing his provocative words, Seong Moran completely freezes. Her expression hardens. Stopping dead in her tracks, she turns to glare at him with a sharp, piercing gaze. Infuriated, she demands to know if he is accusing the noble Iron Sword sect of lure and betrayal. Jin Sowoon sarcastically asks if she is truly that naive, or if she just talks better than she fights. He reminds her of the unfair, sexist rules she complained about earlier. He realizes she genuinely knows nothing about the scheme. Still, she swears her sect values honor above all else. Eyes full of resolve, the young lady guarantees they would never act like petty bandits. Hearing her naive oath, Jin Sowoon just mocks her. Knowing exactly how dirty they play, he proposes a wager. Her own brother will start trouble to humiliate his sect. Jin Sowoon walks past her, warning with cold certainty that his sect will be turned into a complete joke. Deeply disappointed, Seong Moran calls him a deluded fool before turning her back and walking away in anger. Jin Sowoon marches forward, muttering to himself that from the bottom of his heart, he hopes he is wrong. Look at this gorgeous setup. The young talent gathering is finally kicking off at the lakeside pavilion. Deep inside the hall, an arrogant warrior stands up, aggressively provoking the guests with an incredibly loud, insolent tone. He questions how a weak group like the Taeul sect stays on the peaks while the Iron Sword sect gets excluded. The provoker scoffs at the Jiryong contract, pointing directly at Hong Saryeon as she sits with her head bowed. The other disciples laugh mockingly, sneering that her silence proves she has absolutely zero defense against his words. Hong Saryeon desperately fights back tears under the intense, public humiliation as cruel laughter echoes through the hall. Raising his cup in victory, the attacker calls on everyone to demand a formal statement from the Taeul sect. He thrusts his glass toward her, demanding that she answer his insults in front of all the gathered guests. Smiling maliciously, he asks if she agrees that trash needs to be cleaned up. Hong Saryeon is completely speechless. Shaking with intense shame, the poor girl tightly clutches her clothes, utterly unable to defend herself against the young man's continuous, cruel insults. Suddenly, Jin Sowoon appears at an adjacent table, calmly declaring that he actually agrees with the provoker's opinion. From afar, Seong Moran watches in total surprise, noting the arrival of the guy who caused chaos earlier. A martial artist offers her a seat, but she coldly refuses. Meanwhile, Gai Choliong is shocked to see Jin Sowoon. Gai Choliong gets highly annoyed, demanding to know if he missed the speech, but Jin Sowoon just sarcastically mocks the title of senior brother. Jin Sowoon jabs back, asking how someone who stays silent while their sect is insulted can call themselves senior brother. Terrified, Hong Saryeon tries to stop the fight, frantically asking why he showed up here all by himself. Smirking, Jin Sowoon says he only came because he was worried she would cause more trouble at the event. Next, the young man slowly scans the room, noting exactly how the wealthy sect leaders are reacting. He spots two elite martial artists at a reserved table who do not even bother to look at the commotion. On one side stands Naming San, the legendary divine dragon and heir to the mighty Naming clan. On the other is Song Mohayan, the Iron Sword heir and a direct rival to the elite Thai sect. The two exchange pretty tense glances across the hall. They both know the real fight is starting now. Guangza spins around, furiously accusing Jin Sowoon of cutting in on his talk with Hong. The bully sneers quite mockingly, asking if the kid plans to speak up and represent the weak in this grand debate. Jin Sowoon just stares back with a totally blank face. Staying completely calm under fire, he casually grabs a chicken leg and slowly repeats that he absolutely agrees with every single word of criticism. Guangza is quite stunned when Jin Sowoon brings up a clever metaphor about a dirty pond needing fresh water to get clean. Chewing his food with real relish, the young kid pauses quite dramatically before delivering the final blow. He says fresh water only cleans a pond if that water is clean too, pointing at the Xingu sect as pure filth. Jin Sowoon openly asks why that rich clan still has not joined the peaks despite having almost limitless money. Then he drops a massive bombshell by exposing the bloody Changjuk Manor incident from 60 years ago. Guangza's face turns totally pale with pure dread upon hearing that dark, rotten family secret exposed to everyone. He remembers how the brothers of that sect brutally slaughtered each other in a bloody struggle for the leader's throne. Jin Sowoon sarcastically admits they are strong, but drags their faction's disgraceful history of betrayal into the light. He asks how anyone could possibly trust their back to a bunch of traitors who literally murder their own brothers. He slams his cup onto the table with heavy force, bringing a dead silence over every martial artist present. Jin Sowoon finishes with a cold laugh. He would never stand beside such dirty, despicable cowards on any battlefield. The young martial artists from the other sects are left in absolute shock, unable to believe someone just exposed that crime. Blinded by rage, Gu Yonga charges right forward and grabs the boy's collar, roaring with pure violence. Completely losing control, he screams, "How dare you bring up the dark history of the Qingju sect in front of everyone?" But wait, a booming voice suddenly echoes through the hall, freezing the furious young bully right on the spot. The heir, Song Mohayan, walks down the stairs with a terrifying pressure, making the bully stammer in fear. Stepping forward slowly, the young leader sternly accuses Guangza of completely disrespecting guests under their roof. He flatly declares that insulting guests in his own home is basically spitting on his clan's pride. Song tries to defend the truth, arguing that the other sect started it, but her brother sharply tells her to shut her mouth. Song Mohayan then blames Jin Sowoon for twisting the topic and completely ruining a good discussion. Terrified of a total bloodbath, Hong quickly steps forward, bowing and apologizing to somehow save the boy's life. Jin Sowoon shifts in his seat, sarcastically admitting that he seems to have ruined this nice little gathering of the new generation. To absolute shock, the boy offers a polite bow, taking full responsibility right in front of Song Mohayan. Song is stunned to see this usually fearless boy actually bow down and apologize so calmly. He tells Gu Yonga that he is truly sorry for going too far and touching on his clan's painful history. Jin Sowoon adds that they will take their leave to avoid any more drama, telling everyone to enjoy the rest of the night. He gestures to Hong to follow him as they exit, while the rival heir watches them with a dark, threatening glare. But as they turn to leave, Song Mohayan barks at them to stop right there. He loudly warns that insulting any guests on his family's property heavily damages the honor of the Iron Sword sect. Speaking as the patriarch's grandson and top disciple, he demands physical blood payment before they can walk out of here. Song Mohayan states that mere words are not enough, making it very clear he wants to settle this through steel. With a cold sneer, the patriarch's direct grandson challenges Jin Sowoon to an immediate duel right in front of the crowd. Song watches in utter shock. She realizes there is absolutely no way to stop this collision now. And you won't believe this, instead of fear, Jin Sowoon starts laughing with a dark, satisfied smile. Looking up, the kid realizes history is repeating itself perfectly. With a highly defiant gaze, our hero feels a grim joy, knowing his theories were dead on the money. Song sadly looks down, knowing her brother's massive ego just ruined any hope of peace. Back inside their room, Jin Tasa is absolutely furious, yelling at his son for accepting a duel at the banquet. Hong immediately steps up to defend him, telling her father that Jin Sowoon's explanation actually makes a lot of sense. The kid tries to defend himself, but she snaps back that regardless of his reasons, he should have stayed completely calm. Hong breaks down in tears, desperately crying because the enemy wields a brutal heavy sword, and Jin Sowoon might not survive this fight. She sheds genuine tears, terrified of losing her companion over that reckless decision. Hurting to see her cry, Jin Sowoon tries to calm her down, promising he has a solid plan to win. Kang Chesio gets highly irritated by Jin Sowoon's joking, while the boy gestures for quiet to keep Hong from crying worse. Kang Chesio demands that Jin Tae-sen give his son a severe scolding, but the master stays in absolute silence. Jin Sowoon takes full responsibility, firmly asking the elders to trust in his abilities just this once. Gritting his teeth, Jin Tae-sen sees the sheer determination in the boy's eyes and falls silent. Annoyed and unable to argue, he has no choice but to accept. While Jin Tae-sen sits defeated in the darkness, the young man watches his father's silent agony, swearing deep in his heart that he will never let this humiliation happen again. Jin Tae-sen carries the heavy burden of protecting both his son and the sect, bracing for the absolute worst. The next day, the fateful duel finally begins at the main training courtyard of the Iron Sword sect. Hong comes sprinting down the corridor, screaming Jin Sowoon's name in pure panic. Terrified, she delivers urgent, shocking news about his father that makes his heart completely drop. His face freezes in shock. You won't believe what his father is doing at this exact second. Without wasting a single second, he bolts frantically down the hallway toward the combat arena. Jin Sowoon completely panics when he sees that the worst-case scenario he fought to prevent has actually happened. In the arena, the whispering crowd watches as the boy's father drops to his knees, begging for mercy. Jin Tae-sen lies completely flat on the stone ground before the rival sect leaders, humiliating himself entirely just to protect his son's future. The Iron Sword patriarchs look down on him with cruel, smug smirks. The leader apologizes to the alliance strategist for this messy display, but the guest tells him to go ahead. Chujong watches closely, recognizing the dark political play behind this public humiliation. The strategist realizes the Iron Sword wants to force the Tae sect to give up their official spot at all costs. Jin Tae-sen slams his forehead against the stone floor, bleeding as he desperately begs for his son's life. The rival patriarch demands to hear the exact crimes the boy committed before he makes a final decision. Blood drips down Jin Tae-sen's forehead as he admits his son insulted their rival. Mocking him with a laugh, the old man sneers that the boy is just like his father who did the same thing 20 years ago. Jin Sowoon appears at the arena entrance, his heart breaking as he watches his father prostrate on the dirt, his slow steps heavy with absolute anguish. The young man slowly walks up to the prostrate figure in the center courtyard. Jin Sowoon tells his father to stand up, but Jin Tae-sen replies that no father can watch his child get hurt. Devastated, Jin Sowoon fires back that no son can stand to watch his father humiliate himself like this. The boy firmly tells his father to step back and leave everything to him from this moment on. The young man squeezes his fist until his veins bulge, showing the raw, uncontrollable rage burning inside him. Song Mo-hyun steps down, mocking their family love and sneering that the head-banging almost made him cry. Looking down with sheer contempt, the villain sneers that he might forgive the insult if Jin So-woon kneels beside his father. Answering the insult with action, Jin So-woon reaches down and slowly, deliberately draws his blade. The young man tells his father that once the sword is drawn, there is absolutely no turning back. He declares that all apologies are meaningless now, demanding that his father step away from the courtyard. Turning to face his opponent, Jin So-woon declares he came here for one reason: to show his true power. Hong and Kang Cheseo watch in sheer terror as the young man warns that he never plays around in battle. Watch this, he takes a heavy step forward, completely ready to face his rival in a brutal final duel. Jin So-woon looks at his kneeling father, promising he won't disappoint him as he tells him to just watch. Meanwhile, Song Mo-hyun makes a lazy, arrogant wave of his hand, signaling his lackeys to bring out his massive sword. Lifting the massive blade, the villain mocks him, saying he wants to see what a 100 Peaks disciple can actually do. Jin So-woon sizes up his opponent, knowing this guy was pampered with every resource their wealthy sect had to offer. The rival clan's crushing heavy sword is an absolute nightmare for the light and nimble style of the Tae sect. Determined to overwhelm him with pure speed, Jin So-woon strikes first. Unleashing the first basic form of his sect, the opponent can barely believe his eyes as Jin So-woon blitzes across the courtyard with insane speed. He barely manages to swing his massive greatsword, using its heavy iron width to block the kid's strike. Song Mo-hyun sneers, mocking Jin So-woon like a pathetic little rat for trying to use such a featherlight sword style. A brutal slash. The heavy iron slams forward, sending Jin So-woon stumbling back from the raw impact. That massive blade whips through the air, whipping up a gale so fierce the very ground starts shaking beneath them. The steel slams directly into the arena floor, shattering the stone to pieces and throwing up a massive screen of dust. Watching from the sidelines, Mayong calmly analyzes the clash, thinking the Tae sect is pathetic for buckling on the very first exchange. Through the rising dust, Song Mo-hyun grins mockingly. Is that weak tap really all you've got? Shrouded in the thick fog, Jin So-woon takes a steady breath, feeling the heavy, bone-rattling vibrations still ringing through his arms. Song Mo-hyun keeps laughing, sneering that nothing decent ever comes from the Tae sect and that the kid is a nobody. Stomping his foot down, Jin So-woon glares. Shut your mouth and cut the arrogant talk. He lunges forward again. Steel rings on steel in a high-speed clash against the heir's heavy blade. Their blades lock. The villain smirks in this pure test of strength, fully expecting to crush him. Jin Sowoon has to admit the guy's raw strength is pretty incredible, but he refuses to give up even a single inch of ground. Leaning in close, Song Mo Hyan whispers directly into Jin Sowoon's ear, bringing up another pathetic loser just like him. He tells a story about how, years ago, another Thai sect fighter dared to challenge his father, completely forgetting his place. He reveals that the challenger was utterly crushed, and that young fool was none other than Jin Taonan Jin Sowoon's own father. To pay for that ultimate disrespect, the father was physically broken, branded, and burned with the flat side of a red-hot blade. Hideous, agonizing burn scars. They completely covered his chest, his back, and his stomach. Smiling like a demon, he openly spits out the name of that tortured fighter from 20 years ago. Jin Taonan's shameful history is laid bare, exposing the horrific torment he was forced to endure. Absolute shock. Jin Sowoon finally realizes the horrific origin of those marks on his father's body. He slowly turns his head, staring right at his father in the silent crowd. Finally, understanding the source of his quiet agony, Jin Sowoon watches as Jin Taonan looks down in shame, completely unable to meet his son's eyes. Seizing on the kid's total shock, the villain strikes with a savage kick, planting his boot directly into Jin Sowoon's chest. The devastating force launches Jin Sowoon backward, sending him skidding hard across the rough courtyard stones. Watching the brutal hit land, Kang Shazio and Hong cry out in sheer terror, genuinely fearing the young warrior won't survive this. Staggering, Jin Sowoon struggles to stand. His rival mocks him, laughing that this fight is utterly pointless. He laughs, shouting that both father and son are exactly the same gutless cowards who just sit there and swallow humiliation. Up in the stands, the nobles chuckle. The Thai sect is garbage, and this duel is a joke. Over on the main stage, the old patriarch wears a cruel smirk, deeply satisfied to see the Thai sect utterly ruined. Almost everyone watching is absolutely convinced that history is repeating itself and the Thai sect is destined to fall once again. But wait, look behind the smoke. Jin Sowoon is smiling, and with one explosive burst, he charges forward at terrifying speed. Once again, he initiates the basic first form of his sect's technique. A massive strike comes down, but Jin Sowoon slips underneath with surgical, razor-sharp precision. The young patriarch's grandson gasps, his glowing blue eyes widening in pure shock as his massive attack slices through nothing but empty air. Jin Sowoon decides he's done holding back. Utilizing just the very tip of his slender sword, he effortlessly parries that massive, crushing blow. His rival roars in absolute disbelief, unable to comprehend how this supposed weakling just deflected his most devastating strike. Thousands of ancient training manuals suddenly flash through Jin Sowoon's mind like lightning, guiding his every move. Panicking, the desperate heir lashes out wildly, screaming to know what kind of trick is being played. Jin Sowoon glides across the dirt, fueled by his burning desire to grow strong enough to protect those he loves. That exact same starter technique now erupts with the terrifying force of 30 years of pure, refined energy. The steel tears right through Song Mo Hyan's skin, leaving him paralyzed with fear at this terrifying destructive power. Standing tall, Jin Sowoon holds a flawless stance as he looks down at his bleeding, broken opponent on the arena floor. Song Mo Hyan collapses onto his heavy blade, coughing up blood as the full shock of that devastating blow sets in. Grinning confidently, Jin Sowoon rests his blade on his shoulder. Is that really all you've got? Completely drained of any strength, the beaten heir collapses backward onto the cold stone, leaving the entire arena utterly speechless. Slumped on the dirt, his eyes widen in pure shock that an ordinary disciple just utterly crushed him. High on the dais, Patriarch Songwal watches his grandson's humiliation with a dark, furious glare, while the beaten villain struggles to rise. He leans heavily on his sword, desperate to save his pride, while Jin Sowoon calmly looks down on him. Screaming with all his remaining strength, the young heir launches a wild, desperate attack. Jin Sowoon dodges the strike with effortless grace, proving the massive gap in skill between them. His rival's massive sword slams deep into the stone floor, marking the absolute end of this duel. The aggressor's eyes widen as he realizes his own power is completely failing him. His internal energy suddenly vanishes, leaving him totally unable to trigger any of his martial arts techniques. Shaking in terror, too weak to even hold his sword, he panics as paralysis locks his body. Jin Sowoon mocks him, calling his rival's internal energy cultivation completely pitiful and worthless. Collapsing to his knees on the dirt, the heir roars in pure rage, his blocked energy making him refuse to accept this pathetic defeat. He took his sect's most precious, top-tier elixirs, yet he is losing. The young man panics, realizing a supposedly weaker opponent has completely overpowered him in raw internal energy. Our protagonist looks down on him with absolute dominance, ready to end this show. Wait. The villain finally connects the dots. His power vanished the moment Jin Sowoon touched his shoulders. During that quick brush in the hall, this kid must have used an artifact to steal a chunk of his energy. Terrified out of his mind, the defeated heir screams, accusing Jin Sowoon of using forbidden sorcery. He yells you are a lunatic for using an art banned by the Murim Alliance right in public. Calling him a demonic spy, the villain begs the guards to arrest him. Up on the dais, the Iron Sword Patriarch watches his grandson's public breakdown as the entire courtyard falls dead silent. Crawling across the ground, the grandson begs his powerful grandfather for help to crush this T-boy. He desperately insists he felt his very life force being drained away by dark sorcery. Jin Sowoon calmly listens to the heavy accusations while the crowd starts whispering around them. The villain yells the taboo name, accusing Jin Sowoon of mastering the forbidden heavenly demon-absorbing art. That forbidden name sends shockwaves through the entire crowd, as onlookers murmur in absolute terror and panic. Now watch this. Patriarch Songwall slowly steps down from his throne, walking toward his crawling grandson under everyone's eyes. So Mayong notes that accusations of forbidden arts are incredibly serious in the martial world. He knows using forbidden magic gets you killed, but framing someone falsely carries an even worse penalty. The strategist sees the rival patriarch is backed into a corner by his grandson and decides to wait for his moment. Standing right in the center of the arena, Jin Sowoon faces the rival leadership without showing a shred of fear. So Mayong speaks up, reminding everyone how they swallowed their pride and apologized. Yet the Iron Sword sect insisted on fighting out of pure vanity, trying to prove their dominance just to steal a spot among the prestigious peaks. The young man boldly declares he only accepted this duel to prove the value of tea through pure, fair swordsmanship. In the crowd, Song feels deeply ashamed of her brother's pathetic attempt at lying. Jin Sowoon loudly declares that a shameless clan like the Iron Sword sect has zero right to stand among the peaks. Seeing the kid's perfect counterargument, So Mayong smiles with satisfaction and simply watches the drama unfold. Public opinion instantly shifts as the guests openly mock the shameless, dirty tactics of the Iron Sword sect. The villain shakes in horror as his wild claims end up ruining his own family's reputation. Out of pure desperation, Song Mo Hyan slams his head hard against the stone floor before his grandfather, swearing he is telling the truth. He cries that he has never lost to anyone his age, so this loss must be due to sorcery. Desperately, he screams that his energy was being drained, staking his own name and honor on this claim. The young heir even agrees to face death if he is lying, swearing on his very life that forbidden arts were used. Patriarch Songwall lets out a heavy, tired sigh. Feeling the weight of his grandson's blood oath, the old patriarch raises his hand to officially halt the match, imposing his absolute authority over the entire arena. Jin Sowoon questions why the fight was stopped, but the cold patriarch demands to inspect his body personally. Faced with the young man's refusal, the Iron Sword leader furiously asks if he is calling his grandson a liar. Song Mohai smiles wickedly, asking how Jin Sowoon intends to bear the consequences if he is proven innocent. The patriarch roars furiously, ordering the kid to shut his mouth because stalling only makes him look even more suspicious. He warns that he will search Jin Sowoon right now and make the entire Tae sect pay dearly. Seeing the imminent threat, Jin Sowoon turns to his father in the crowd and shouts out to him. The boy takes a solemn stance, swearing he is ready to offer his own life for his sect's honor. Jin Taeyeon stands in shock, realizing how extreme his son's actions are, while Jin Sowoon orders everyone in the hall not to touch his body until the judges arrive. The young man thrusts his blade deep into the arena floor, proudly declaring his name and his allegiance to the Tae sect, ready to die to protect the honor trampled by the schemes of their rival. With breathtaking courage, the young man formally challenges the patriarch of the Iron Sword sect to an all-out duel. You can practically hear a pin drop as the crowd freezes at this kid's absolute audacity. Blinded by rage, the old patriarch roars, demanding to know how an insolent brat dares to challenge him publicly. In response, Jin Sowoon raises his voice, commanding the patriarch to shut his mouth and stop shouting in front of him. The crushing weight of their auras makes nearby warriors stagger, completely suffocated by the intense pressure filling the arena. Sensing how dangerous things have gotten, two masters from the Tae sect draw their swords to protect the boy. Jin Sowoon is surprised to see his father and the hallmaster step forward as a living shield for him. Kang Chae-so scolds the young man, telling him to step back and stop carrying the weight of the entire sect. Jin Taeyeon stares at his son, declaring that no father in this world would ever let his own child die first. The enraged patriarch leaps forward to attack, swearing to wipe the Tae sect off the face of the earth forever. Suddenly, a calm but commanding voice echoes through the courtyard, ordering everyone to stop fighting immediately. It is Jaegil Somayong, the alliance strategist, stepping into the clash with his incredibly overwhelming presence. With a single wave of his powerful energy, he freezes both the attacking patriarch and the defending Tae sect masters. Casting a cold look around, the strategist orders everyone to sheath their weapons and put an end to the madness. The crowd watches in awe as the absolute authority of the Murim Alliance representative completely dominates the arena. Turning to the young man next, he demands that Jin Sowoon also lower his sword and stand down, his reflection caught in the cold metal. Jin Sowoon stares back at the strategist and firmly replies that he cannot sheath his sword. The rival patriarch fumes with rage at the boy's blatant disrespect toward the alliance envoy, but Jegul So-myong calmly ignores him, curiously asking why the young man refuses to back down. He points out that the rival sect used this duel to humiliate them, and even tried framing him with forbidden sorcery. The boy confronts the strategist directly, asking how he can trust someone who just stood by and watched everything unfold in silence. Jegul So-myong walks down the steps, finding the boy's attitude incredibly insolent but admitting his courage is highly impressive. He openly admits he held back from stepping in sooner simply because he found the chaotic situation quite amusing. Approaching the boy, casting a sharp look, the strategist asks him what he truly wants right now, while pointing his weapon toward the rival patriarch. Now, this is where the kid goes absolutely savage after a tense, heavy pause, with eyes burning in fury. He loudly demands the head of the Iron Sword sect leader. Jegul So-myong lets out a subtle smile, realizing the boy's demand is a move of extreme political brilliance. The strategist easily sees through Jin Sowoon's plan he is ready to use his own death to completely ruin his rival. He is genuinely impressed by how brilliantly this kid turned an inevitable defeat into the enemy's complete downfall. Jegul So-myong turns to the patriarch and asks if he has the guts to wager his own sect's name plaque. Caught completely off guard, the old man stammers, asking why he would ever risk his sect's name over a basic inspection. The panicked patriarch, desperate and baby, tries to back down, arguing that if responsibility must be taken, they should settle it with a duel. Jegul So-myong slowly strokes his beard, thinking it over, and ultimately decides to accept the old master's proposal. The strategist shocks the entire room by proposing they wager the sacred weapon passed down through generations of their leaders. Even Jin Sowoon is caught off guard by the strategist's bold demand, which suddenly takes the stakes to a whole new level. We are talking about the legendary Ninefold Sword, a sacred treasure passed down through generations of the Iron Sword sect. Desperate, the patriarch tries to backtrack, claiming he can never risk his clan's most sacred relic. The strategist completely shuts down the argument if the grandson is telling the truth. Checking Jin Sowoon's dantian is incredibly simple. He warns that if this is indeed a setup, they are using the alliance for a malicious act. So-myong's eyes go cold as he openly accuses the rival clan of acting with pure malice and complete dishonesty. Song-woo freezes in absolute shock, suddenly realizing he has walked straight into a political trap with no way out. Backed into a corner, the old patriarch gives in and finally allows them to test young Jin Sowoon. So-myong places a hand on the old man's shoulder, asking if Jin Sowoon agrees to these terms. Looking completely calm, Jin Sowoon steps forward to face the test without a single shred of fear. The strategist reaches out, gently telling the young man to relax and let the probing energy flow right in. Pressing his fingers against Jin Sowoon's pulse, he sends a sharp surge of blue energy straight down into his dantian. A brilliant light floods the stage, showing the tense crowd how incredibly thorough the inspection really is. Everyone's thinking about the grandson's wild accusation that this kid actually learned the forbidden demonic absorbing art. That dark technique steals energy from others, leaving a chaotic, messy blend of mismatched power inside the victim's body. If Jin Sowoon had really used it, his entire cultivation center would be completely filthy and totally impure. But that special Dragon Bracelet completely purified the stolen energy, melting it right into his own Tai power. So-myong's eyes go wide. The young man's internal energy is actually flawless, absolutely clean and perfectly pure. The entire banquet hall falls dead silent. You can literally feel the tension right now. So-myong lets go of his arm and solemnly declares to the crowd that the boy has never touched the dark art. Song-woo stands completely frozen in shock. His grandson's massive accusation is publicly shattered. Panicking, young Song Mo-hyun screams out in desperation that his energy was definitely drained. The old patriarch refuses to believe it, shouting that there is no way a Tai disciple could beat his grandson fairly. Driven mad by his shattered pride, the old patriarch suddenly lunges forward to grab Jin Sowoon and check the boy himself. He tightly squeezes his wrist, forcing a violent wave of aggressive energy straight into the kid's body. That massive, unfair force makes Jin Sowoon groan in agonizing pain as his meridians are violently crushed. Jin Tae and Kang Chiak lose their minds with fury, shouting out, "What on earth do you think you're doing?" The brutal force makes the poor kid cough up blood, leaving him heavily injured on the arena floor. Song Moran panics, screaming at the top of her lungs for her grandfather to stop before he actually kills the boy. Realizing what he has done, the shocked patriarch lets go, and Jin Sowoon collapses unconscious and bloody onto the stone floor. The masters frantically rush forward to help the unconscious boy, while the entire crowd explodes in pure outrage. So-myong glares at the old man with absolute, terrifying fury, asking him what the hell he has just done. The old patriarch begins to tremble, finally realizing the boy was completely innocent and he has made an unforgivable mistake. Bloody and broken on the floor, Jin Sowoon weakly opens his mouth, barely whispering the rival sect leader's name. As blood drips, the boy gathers his remaining strength to demand justice. Propped up by his father and hallmaster, the young man demands that the Iron Sword Patriarch get on his knees and beg. That heavy demand echoes through the arena, leaving the grandson and every single guest in utter disbelief. Song Moran covers her mouth in horror, watching her family's pride and reputation get completely torn to shreds. Reaching out his bloody hand, Jin Sowoon is ready to collect the heavy price for this clan's wicked actions. With blood covering his face, the young man demands they pay back every single moral debt they owe him. The boy suddenly collapses, completely exhausted. So Mayong catches him after he lands that massive political blow. His father and hallmaster hold the unconscious young man, desperately screaming his name over and over again. A heavy silence hangs over the venue while the alliance leaders stare down at the completely defeated patriarch. So Mayong looks down at the old patriarch with a freezing glare, promising devastating consequences. The strategist coldly tells the old man to honor their bet and immediately hand over his clan's most sacred relic. Fast forward to the next morning, and we are looking at a quiet pavilion with birds singing in the trees. Jin Sowoon slowly wakes up in his infirmary bed, feeling incredibly sore all over. Plinks hard against the light, trying to shake off the grogginess and figure out exactly where he is. Suddenly, he sits straight up in bed, shouting the rival leader's name as those intense memories come rushing back. A hand rests on a book on the table as a calm voice echoes. So Mayong sits right beside the bed, asking him with a smirk if his little theatrical performance is finally over. In the damp darkness of a filthy prison cell, rats crawl across the freezing stone floor. Song Chinwol steps up to visit his locked-up grandson, Song Mo Hyan, who just keeps screaming like a maniac about dark sorcery. Gripping the heavy iron bars, Song Mo Hyan begs his grandfather to believe his words and not let him rot behind bars. But the disappointed patriarch simply turns away, muttering that the foolish youth still has not recovered his sanity. He only laments the legendary treasure lost because of his grandson's stupidity, completely ignoring the young man's desperate wailing. Calling Song Mo Hyan an absolute idiot, the old patriarch orders the guards to deny him even a drop of water until he repents. Left alone, the desperate grandson completely loses his mind inside the wet cell, screaming his grandfather's name into the dark. Meanwhile, back in a quiet infirmary room, Ju Seo Mayong casually asks Jin Sowoon if he is finally done putting on a show. Sitting in his bed, Jin Sowoon blinks in sheer surprise. Realizing the master strategist has read every single one of his moves with flawless precision, the youth puts on a blank expression and starts whistling, acting completely clueless in response to the old man's words. Inside, Jin Sowoon admits he was naive to think a cheap performance would ever fool a genius strategist. After all, Ju Seomyong is hailed as the greatest living genius in the entire alliance, a man who never falls for obvious lies. If the pinnacle of raw martial power was Yong, then the absolute king of strategy was Ju Seomyong, and let me tell you, his early death is what completely ruined the future of this world. Jin Sowoon asks in shock if he figured everything out from the start, and the laughing elder happily confirms his naivety. Ju Seomyong explains he saw right through how the kid intentionally taunted the rival patriarch right in the middle of the crowded arena. He points out that Jin Sowoon cleverly used him as a shield to escape a deadly confrontation with an unbeatable opponent. The genius strategist even realized that the blood the boy spat out was fake, a result of him biting his own cheek. Setting his writing brush down on the table, the old man calmly prepares to ask the boy the ultimate question. Ju Seomyong locks his eyes on Jin Sowoon, demanding to know exactly when he planned this entire scheme. A heavy silence fills the sunlit room, while Jin Sowoon carefully considers the best answer to give the strategist. Cornered by the old man's terrifyingly sharp insight, Jin Sowoon hesitates. Ju Seomyong slowly sips his warm tea and mocks the quiet boy, asking if he lost his tongue now that his trick has failed. Jin Sowoon places his bare feet flat on the cool wooden floor, his entire tone shifting to something intensely focused. He points directly to the sacred ninefold sword sitting peacefully on the table, asking if that legendary weapon is his reward. Suddenly, the boy sheds his serious look and eagerly runs over, his eyes literally sparkling with pure, unbridled greed. Ju Seomyong is left utterly speechless, staring blankly as he struggles to comprehend the kid's bizarre and sudden change in attitude. Jin Sowoon hoists the heavy sword, laughing like a madman while calculating how many fortunes he can sell this relic for. Irritated, the strategist calls the boy insolent for trying to pawn off a rival family's historic relic. Dropping the act, Jin Sowoon seriously explains he merely prepared himself to utterly crush the rival sect's arrogance at the feast. Ju Seomyong listens in complete, analytical silence. Grasping the real motivation behind the move, he wonders how Jin Sowoon predicted that Song Mo Hyan would mention those taboo forbidden arts in battle. Jin Sowoon warns that talking any further is a losing deal, and he already repaid his debt by answering one question. Laughing, the elder points out that grandmasters pay fortunes just to seek his counsel, asking if Jin Sowoon truly wants nothing. Jin Sowoon simply chuckles, giving a sarcastic farewell bow as he prepares to stroll out with his newly acquired sacred sword. Ju Seomayong is left sitting in stunned silence while the boy maintains his smug grin and playful, mocking bow. Unable to keep his massive curiosity in check, the strategist slams down a treasure chest, and honestly, seeing that sweet advance payment, Jin Sowoon spins right back with a greedy grin. He explains that pampered prodigies like Song Mohyun always have incredibly predictable, easy-to-read personality traits. He simply exploited his rival's massive pride, knowing the arrogant jerk would never accept suffering defeat from someone weaker than him. To himself, Jin So-woon quietly admits that he did use his mystical bracelet to secretly drain some of his rival's energy. Luckily, the artifact purified that stolen energy so cleanly that not even Ju Seomyong caught it during his thorough pulse check. The eager young warrior pops open the small wooden box, ready to check out his hard-earned payment. But when he looks inside, Jin So-woon freezes in absolute shock to see 3 rare iron heart pills from the rival sect. Jin So-woon laughs hysterically with joy, thanking the generous strategist from the bottom of his heart for gifting him such high-grade elixirs. Ju Seomyong asks why he did not just win the battle cleanly if he possessed such absolute confidence from the very start. Jin So-woon replies that a basic victory would just be chalked up to blind luck, and he needed to permanently destroy his enemy. But the strategist quietly asks what would have happened if he had not been at the banquet to back him up. Jin So-woon responds coldly, even if they had killed him, an examination of his corpse would have proven his total innocence. The young warrior proves he was ready to risk his very life just to defend the honor of the Taeyul sect. Jigul Somyong stands there completely astonished, wondering if anyone would truly die for a mere sect's reputation. Jin So-woon tightens his fist, stating with absolute conviction how much his martial family matters in this ruthless world. Staring into the strategist's eyes, the boy shows that his loyalty to the Taeyul sect remains unbreakable. They stand in heavy silence, both masters of mind games recognizing the sheer weight of their ideals. Jin So-woon quietly reflects on Jigul Somyong's name and the legendary heritage that his family carries. Looking at the strategist, he asks if Jigul Somyong genuinely believes the Taeyul sect is the only one without honor. Jigul Somyong watches the young master, his eyes shifting with deep curiosity and sudden respect. The old man bursts into a loud laugh, cheerfully declaring he always knew hanging around the kid would be insanely fun. Jin So-woon just stares at him, finding his strange laughter bizarre. Still, treating him as a true monster, Jigul Somyong hands over a special, official government pass. Jin So-woon takes the heavy plaque with a startled look, immediately reading the sharp golden inscription carved on it. Get ready for this, his eyes widen in shock when he realizes how priceless that plaque really is. This token is a direct pass to enter the prestigious Murim Academy, skipping their grueling entrance exams entirely. With this second token, the Taeyul sect earns the right to send another student. He grips the rare pass tightly. He just unlocked a brilliant future for his disciples. Deeply moved, Jin So-woon listens as the strategist suddenly offers him a government job. Upon hearing this post-graduation proposal, the young man freezes on the spot, completely dumbfounded. He instantly recognizes the notorious name of the government department the old strategist runs. Jin So-woon recalls that this infamous office is known for brutal, sleepless workdays and endless, painful toil. Jigul Somyong excitedly promises to create a custom role just for him, sending a cold shiver down his spine. Jigul Somyong suddenly leaps out the window to leave. Jin So-woon yells, asking why he cannot just use the damn door. Laughing heartily, the strategist bids farewell, telling him to report for duty soon. Jin So-woon falls into absolute despair, shouting to the night that he will never become a brainless corporate slave. As the strategist's laughter fades into the dark, Jin So-woon panics, dreading his upcoming career. The next morning, the defeated Iron Sword sect is left reeling from disgrace and the loss of their ultimate treasure. Seong Moran walks slowly under the blooming wisteria, watching the Taeyul sect delegation pack up. The young heiress quietly broods over the massive shame brought upon her sect during yesterday's rigged investigation. She painfully recalls her grandfather's unhinged rage, accusing innocent guests of demonic sorcery right during a grand feast. The sight of a bloody Jin So-woon standing in the dust, demanding justice, still flashes vividly before her eyes. Her chest tightens, remembering how she proudly boasted that the Iron Sword sect would never behave like common thieves. Overwhelmed with immense guilt, Seong Moran stands alone with her head bowed, dreading any encounter with him. But check this out, Jin So-woon sneaks right behind her, whispering softly and causing her to scream in comical fright. Heart racing, she spins around to see the boy standing calmly with his travel bag. Flustered and completely red-faced, Seong Moran nervously twists her hands, stammering and unable to speak. Bowing her head in genuine shame, the girl pours her heart out, confessing how foolish she had been. Jin So-woon studies her with a curious expression, asking why she suddenly claims to have been so reckless. She tries to explain herself regarding yesterday's chaotic duel, desperately attempting to convey her heavy remorse. Her voice cracking with rising emotion, she asks why on earth he had to go so far as to risk his life. Asking the exact same question the old strategist did, She begs to know the logic behind his absolute madness. He asks if she truly expected the Taeyul sect to quietly take that humiliation. Seong Moran turns pale, realizing she just sounded incredibly disrespectful to his home. Panicking, she tries to explain herself, waving her hands frantically and promising she meant nothing like that. Her throat tightens as she struggles to swallow, desperately searching for the right words to beg for his forgiveness. Standing beneath the falling purple blossoms, the proud heiress of the Iron Sword sect displays a rare, raw vulnerability she has never shown anyone before. Seong Moran drops into a deep, formal bow of apology before him. Jin Sowoon accepts her sincerity, telling her to raise her head and stop carrying such a heavy burden. She looks up with wide, teary eyes, completely taken aback by his unexpected kindness and gentle grace. He says her apology is more than enough, knowing that expecting a sincere bow from her stubborn grandfather is simply impossible. Seong Moran promises to try and convince her grandfather to apologize, but Jin Sowoon cuts her off, saying it is unnecessary. He smiles warmly. Continuing an endless cycle of hatred just does not make sense. Seong Moran's eyes sparkle upon hearing such shocking maturity from someone so young. He only asks that if she truly regrets their past, she takes charge to change her sect from within. He walks to his friends, reflecting that while their sects are rivals, they share the same soul. With a bright smile, he reminds himself that they both still belong to the same martial world. Seong Moran sighs in fascination, watching Jin Sowoon walk away beneath a rain of falling purple petals. They share one last poetic glance under the flowering trees, wrapping up an unforgettable encounter. We see a sharp contrast here, with their defeated rivals still trapped in the past. While Jin Sowoon charges forward, Seong Moran silently laments that their failure to apologize led to this tragedy, quietly wiping tears from her face. Deeply remorseful over her clan's past, she keeps crying. Jin Sowoon gets anxious, telling her tears do not suit warriors. Stealing her gaze, Seong Moran presents a beautiful black box as a genuine token of her deep apology. She sincerely hopes this gift will help both of their sects build a peaceful future together. When Jin Sowoon pops the lid open, even he can't believe his eyes, his jaw hits the floor. It is the steel protection pill, a rare treasure meant strictly for direct heirs of her clan. Wearing a bright smile, Seong Moran says goodbye, hoping they meet again under better circumstances. Jin Sowoon smiles back and bows, officially starting a new chapter of mutual respect between their sects. Fast forward a few days later, the sun shines over the peaceful gates of the Tae sect. Stepping inside, Jin Sowoon is completely caught off guard by a massive celebration waiting for him. Excitable kids and his fellow disciples rush forward, loudly celebrating the victorious return of their senior brother. Everyone crowds around him, desperate to catch a glimpse of the legendary nine-fold sword from the banquet. Trying to catch his breath, Jin Sowoon gently nudges the kids aside and spots Lee Yoonho standing right there. Lee Yoonho awkwardly scratches the back of his neck, looking quite embarrassed as he tries to speak to him seriously. Jin Sowoon playfully asks if he wants a piggyback ride, prompting Lee Yoonho to admit he once felt ashamed of their sect. He confesses how much it hurt when outsiders mocked the Tae sect's martial arts, calling them weak and incomplete. But now, thanks to Jin Sowoon's massive feats, he can proudly pound his chest as a Tae sect disciple. Clenching the hilt of his sword, Lee Yoonho swears to train twice as hard to bring honor to their school. Blushing, the kid promises to become a legendary warrior, just like his ultimate role model and senior brother, Jin Sowoon. From a short distance, the masters and Hong Mangi watch the scene, smiling proudly at how mature their disciples have become. With an affectionate smile, Jin Sowoon drops a reassuring hand onto Lee Yoonho's shoulder to encourage his determination. With a grin, Jin Sowoon bumps fists with him, saying he cannot wait to see his progress. Right then, a glowing Hong Mangi steps up, admitting he was too excited to even sleep. The other masters gather around to praise them, while the kids happily dance around Jin Sowoon. Hong Mangi recalls how they endured endless humiliation from their rivals for over a century, all for being deemed weak. But Jin Sowoon changed everything, and honestly, we're talking about a historic feat no adult could ever achieve. Hong Mangi shares his massive gratitude, though he admits feeling a bit ashamed for putting such a heavy burden on Sowoon. Sniffling, the leader excitedly suggests throwing a massive, legendary victory banquet to celebrate their incredible success. Jin Tan immediately shuts the idea down, pointing out they have zero cash and the kids would starve for 6 months. The two jump right into a hilarious shouting match, with Jin Tan arguing that pride does not fill empty bellies. Snorting, Hong Mangi pulls a heavy coin pouch from his robes, promising to pay for the feast with his personal savings. Deeply touched by this gesture, the rest of the masters pull out their own coin pouches to pitch in for the food. Jin Tan quickly snatches the coin pouches with a greedy, highly satisfied grin on his face. With kids hanging off his arms, Jin Sowoon asks if they are really going to have that victory feast. His father acts completely deaf, pretending he heard nothing while sneakily stuffing the collected money away from the other masters. Jin Tan runs away laughing, eagerly plotting to spend the money buying plenty of meat for their daily meals. Watching the hilarious scene, Jin Sowoon quietly remembers the sheer dark times of heavy suffering his father once went through. The young man smiles in relief, watching his father laugh and play carefree in the courtyard. High above the Tae sect, the clear blue sky signals a brand new era of peace and hope for everyone. Out of those 3 pills, Sunan and Hongmi keep 2 of them. The last one is a prize for the best trainee. Meanwhile, over at the Merchant Guild, the workers are counting coins, absolutely furious over their master's reckless spending. That's why Sowoon's father is getting a massive headache balancing the sect's books. After negotiating, Ji Yang-sik actually offered up 3 whole ins just to get a single iron heart pill for his son. But Hongmi refused. No way. Not after Chiang watched the Thai sect get raided. He proudly tells him that their sect's dignity was bought with blood, so it has no price tag. Lounging with a leaf in his mouth, Jin Taezon grumbles that 3 ins could easily make enough money to buy 5 pills a year. Looking at him, Sowoon knows his dad is actually happier than anyone about the sect's revival. Fed up with his dad's constant money complaints, Sowoon casually announces that he is leaving to earn some cash himself. Jin Taezon yells out, asking how on earth he plans to do that, but the boy just laughs and tells him to have some faith. Where to? His dad screams after him, demanding answers. With a sly grin and that leaf still in his mouth, Sowoon turns back and answers without a second thought he is heading wherever the money is. Cut to the busy Wongclan village, completely packed with local villagers and traveling merchants. A traveler in a straw hat stops, looking up in awe at the massive gates of the main mansion. The incredibly rich Wong family estate belongs to one of the 3 biggest merchant clans in the entire land. Word is their only daughter is an absolute beauty, admired by everyone. But here is the crazy part, almost nobody in this town has ever actually seen the young heiress's face. Deep inside the estate, massive doors seal off a private chamber shrouded in a freezing, icy mist. A hand suddenly grabs the heavy door ring and pulls it open, letting a blast of freezing air pour out. Wang Junsun, the clan head, walks in with a warm smile and tells his beloved daughter that he is finally home. Inside, even the plates of rare, expensive fruits on the table are completely covered in a layer of frost. Every single toy and decorative ornament in the entire bedroom is frozen solid from the extreme cold. Right in the middle of this freezing room, young Wang Soso sits coughing softly, weakly welcoming her father. She forces a fragile, gentle smile, just happy to see him after spending another lonely day locked inside this cold room. He gently strokes her hair as she excitedly tells him all about the new embroidery designs she learned today. Showing off her fabric, she promises to embroider a beautiful new robe as a special gift for him very soon. Wang Junsun listens, his heart absolutely breaking as he desperately tries to hide his deep sadness over her condition. Flashback to the day the doctors told him that they had to keep her room filled with freezing energy. They explained the cold only buys her time, as there is absolutely no cure. She suffers from a devastating inner fever that literally burns her body from the inside out, causing agonizing pain. The absolute worst part? Doctors predicted that the poor girl would not even survive past the age of 20. Back in the present, her dad asks what she wants for her birthday, but she insists she already has everything. Still, she shyly admits her biggest dream is to just walk around and see the busy town market. Trapped forever in this dark, frozen room, her only wish is to catch a simple glimpse of the outside world. Soso feels pretty guilty for even asking, while her father feels an intense ache for not being able to grant it. But then, Wang Junsun smiles, revealing he secretly had a highly customized carriage built just for her. He explains that it is equipped with a special cooling system to keep her perfectly safe and chilled on the go. Absolutely beaming with joy, the girl throws her arms right around her father. Her eyes are shining bright as she cries out, thanking him over and over for finally making her dream a reality. Holding her close, Wang Junsun is moved to tears by the warmest, most affectionate hug of his life. He silently swears that he would spend mountains of gold in a heartbeat if it meant finding a real cure for her. Soon, the sun sets over the lavish Wang estate, wrapping the frozen courtyard in the quiet darkness of night. But that peaceful night is about to be shattered by a parent's worst nightmare. Wang Junsun walks into her room only to find it completely empty, with a single ransom letter sitting on her frozen bed. Some bastards have kidnapped his daughter, demanding a mind-blowing fortune if he ever wants to see her alive. The devastated father flies into a pure, blind rage, screaming in absolute hatred at the cowards who touched his little girl. He instantly mobilizes every fighter they have, promising an astronomical fortune to anyone who can bring Wang Soso back alive. Wanted posters showing the young woman's face are plastered across every single town and village in the entire region. Down in the village square, Jin Sowoon studies the poster, taking in every detail. A sharp grin spreads across his face as he realizes this is his golden ticket to make some serious cash. He wastes no time. Jin Sowoon sprints through the dense woods toward the kidnapping site. As he glides past the trees, he carefully combs through the memories of crime reports from his previous life. He recalled how the backing from the merchant guild in his past life only masked shady deals and illegal trades. Once those greedy guilds got what they wanted, they tossed smaller sects aside without a second thought. To get real backing, Jin Sowoon knows he must rescue the Wong clan's daughter and secure their lifelong loyalty. That fat ransom reward will easily wipe out the Taisk sect's massive debt once and for all. Smirking with pure confidence, Jin Sowoon mutters that it is finally time for him to play the heroic savior. Dropping down near a secluded hideout in the woods, he finally tracks down the kidnappers. Using his knowledge of the future, Jin Sowoon had filtered every local report about missing girls. He remembered a chilling case file describing a headless body found right where he is standing. Reaching the spot, the young martial artist quietly slips onto the wooden roof of the decaying shack. He carefully slides a roof tile aside to watch the thugs moving around inside. Seeing Wong Soso is still alive, Jin Sowoon breathes a sigh of relief, but wait, something is seriously wrong. The girl lies shivering on the floor, her body burning with a fierce fever that clearly terrifies her captors. Up above, Jin Sowoon is completely baffled because his past memories mention nothing about any sickness. Watching the captive slip toward death, the main kidnapper draws his blade to wipe out the evidence. Just as the thug lifts his sword to strike, Jin Sowoon crashes straight through the wooden ceiling. With a lightning-fast ambush, he strikes the bastard down midair before the guy can even blink. The remaining masked thugs spin around in sheer panic, drawing their weapons against this uninvited guest. In mere seconds, Jin Sowoon decimates the entire gang, showing off his utterly dominant martial arts. Meanwhile, Wong Soso lies groaning on the dirty floor, completely overwhelmed by the intense heat ravaging her body. Barely forcing her eyes open, she catches the faint outline of Jin Sowoon slicing through her thick ropes. Jin Sowoon immediately feels the terrifying heat radiating straight out of her skin. Pressing his palm to her forehead, he knows this is definitely not a simple fever. As she slowly stirs, Jin Sowoon asks in a quiet voice if she can hear him. Terrified, she weakly asks who he is, and Jin Sowoon politely introduces himself as a Thai sect disciple. He spins a quick lie, claiming he was just taking a midnight stroll when he heard suspicious noises inside. Jin Sowoon acts like a classic hero of justice who simply could not ignore a tragedy unfolding nearby. Overjoyed, Wong Soso shares her name and promises that her wealthy father will generously reward her brave savior. Jin Sowoon offers to carry her to a local doctor, but she frantically begs him to stop. She explains that she must stay in freezing temperatures, or her very meridians will literally burn to ash. Fascinated by her words, Jin Sowoon tries to diagnose the deadly condition behind these intense symptoms. Closing his eyes, he starts scanning every single medical manual he memorized in his past life. Inside his vast mental library, he cross-references terms like constant high fever and internal meridian burning. Waves of medical lore rush through his thoughts, linking ancient records of extremely rare cases. His quick mental search races forward until he finds the exact match. Remembering his past studies back in the Alliance, he zeroes in on this specific condition. He recalls the complete medical archive written by a legendary master of the old ways. In those pages, the text clearly describes a rare condition where the body itself creates massive internal heat. This strange anomaly causes brutal pain, relentless fever, and a massive thermal energy buildup known as the legendary solar physique. Left untreated, this congenital anomaly will easily burn through her meridians. Jin Sowoon realizes this is no ordinary illness, but a unique physical constitution. Now this changes everything, because absolutely no standard medicine on Earth can actually heal her body. He looks down at the suffering girl, fully grasping the true power of the solar physique consuming her. That explains why every master physician across the continent completely failed to find any sort of working cure. Jin Sowoon silently laments her terrible luck, realizing her solar physique must have flared up during her capture. Jin Sowoon remembers that in his past life, Wong Soso died, and her father spent a massive fortune but never found her. Panicked when the hostage died, the kidnappers cut up her body and hid it, losing the ransom. So Jin Sowoon thinks carefully, searching for a genius way to completely reconstruct her deadly constitution. Suddenly, he remembers. A legendary technique in the texts could serve as her ultimate salvation. Dead serious. Jin Sowoon slowly approaches Wong Soso. Looking down at the bedridden girl, he directly tells Wong Soso that he knows an ancient way to rewrite her body's entire constitution. Wong Soso stares at him in absolute shock and honestly, would you believe a random stranger claiming to cure your agony? They talk quietly in the freezing room, surrounded only by cold mist and the heavy silence of the night. Shaking with desperate hope, Wong Soso literally begs Jin Sowoon on her knees to reveal this miracle cure and save her life. She promises she will do anything to escape this unbearable pain, making Jin Sowoon step back with a pretty awkward look. He warns her that changing a constitution is highly dangerous, asking what she would do if he were just a fraud. Wong Soso replies that since he saved her, she can easily tell who genuinely wants to help from those who mean harm. Touched by her absolute trust, Jin Sowoon agrees, explaining that he once read about an identical case in the archives. It was about Suzu, a legendary jade master born with the lunar physique, who mastered the cold frost arts beautifully. But because of her physique, that freezing, icy constitution, Suzu could never have children. To solve this, she sought out the divine doctor of life and death, begging him to alter her body. That legendary doctor actually discovered a way to completely reverse the extreme yin and yang constitutions inside a body. Jin Sowoon deduces that by reversing Suzu's exact procedure, he will be able to completely cure Wang Soso's incredibly volatile solar physique. He warns her that she must take daily medicine and master the Tai Heart method, with no turning back. Wang Soso softly replies that she has no desire to be a warrior, revealing her real, simple dream. Her dream is simply to live a normal life, spend time with family, hug her loved ones, and have her own children someday. All she wants is to grow old, enjoying the small, everyday moments that normal people take for granted. Jin Sowoon realizes that, despite her family's wealth, Wang Soso could never enjoy a thing. Deeply moved by her humble wish, he makes his final decision and prepares to begin. But right before starting, Jin Sowoon suddenly senses enemy reinforcements closing in. To keep Wang Soso safe during the chaos, he quickly taps her neck, putting her to sleep. He catches her falling body. Softly apologizing, he prepares to face the killers. If the Wang clan ever discovers who was really behind this kidnapping, it would spark a massive, destructive war. Outside, dark shadows of the new intruders slowly surround the old hut in the pitch-black forest. Realizing their carrier pigeon never returned, the leader of the masked men orders his squad to raid the cabin immediately. He demands absolute silence, but Jin Sowoon's mocking voice suddenly echoes from above, teasing their pathetic cowardice. Suddenly, Jin Sowoon appears right on the roof with his sword drawn, openly ridiculing the highly disgraceful conduct of the elite Namgong clan. The masked killers freeze, shocked, terrified that this kid already knows exactly who they are. Dropping down from the roof, Jin Sowoon introduces himself with a sneer, telling them he is just here to ruin their plans. Eliminate everyone. The furious leader orders all witnesses killed, demanding to know who this mystery swordsman is. Jin Sowoon just laughs it off, revealing he already knows everything, and exposes them as mercenaries working for the Blue Sky Merchant Guild. He points out that they are the personal dogs of Master Namgong Songjin, leaving their leader totally paralyzed with shock. Exposing their greedy plot, he explains that they used this kidnapping to completely destabilize the rival Wang clan. Seething with rage, the villain gathers his inner energy, fully realizing that Jin Sowoon can never be allowed to leave this forest alive. And just like that, the mercenaries charge together, get ready, because this clash is about to be pure chaos. Drawing their weapons, they unleash the prestigious limitless sword technique of the elite Namgong clan. A simple smirk. Jin Sowoon isn't impressed by their famous, hyped-up family swordsmanship. With razor-sharp reflexes, Jin Sowoon easily blocks and dodges the joint sword strikes in the courtyard, before quickly throwing dirt into one attacker's eyes to completely blind him. The villains shout furiously, calling Jin Sowoon a coward for using cheap tricks in a duel. But he just exploits the opening to strike back hard, giving them zero time to recover. He slashes his foe, sarcastically asking how he is the coward, when an entire group of grown men is ganging up on him. Enraged, the next killer immediately unleashes the second form of the Namgong style, aiming to cut Jin Sowoon down forever. Jin Sowoon lightly dodges and mockingly asks with surprise if the henchman actually knew the second form. As he fights effortlessly, Jin Sowoon begins pointing out and correcting the mistakes in his rival's technique. The mercenary flies into a blind rage, screaming if he is making fun of his style, while trembling in pure frustration. Unable to land a hit, he falls into total panic. He simply cannot understand how an ordinary boy can master and predict his every single move. With a single devastating strike, Jin Sowoon completely humiliates and overcomes the prestigious Namgong clan's legendary swordsmanship. But hold on, because here is where the leader finally steps forward. He channels energy into his blade, taking a stance to unleash the Namgong clan's deadly secret assassination technique. The villain lunges forward at high speed while Jin Sowoon's blue eyes shine with absolute calculation in the courtyard. Multiple sword trails fly as he shouts that an ordinary kid could never predict this attack. His blade's blue energy cuts through the darkness from dozens of angles, completely filling the forest clearing. However, Jin Sowoon pierces right through the attack, striking the leader with multiple blows and ruthlessly silencing him. The leader of the kidnappers falls backward, losing a massive amount of blood as Jin Sowoon finishes his sword swing. All the Namgong clan intruders lie defeated on the ground as Jin Sowoon sheathes his sword in the courtyard. The last villain struggling on the ground stammers, unable to believe how a single boy destroyed them alone, horrified to see his clan's legendary style dismantled so effortlessly. Jin Sowoon scoffs, asking if he really thought that swordsmanship was invincible, adding that in this current era, this is only natural. Jin Sowoon reflects that the mercenary did not even know the swordbreaker form, which was created specifically to counter the Namgong style. Silence falls as the night darkness covers their isolated hut. As the violent storm finally clears from the courtyard, Jin Sowoon opens the wooden door of the shelter, checking the serene horizon to ensure all danger has passed. With the path clear, Jin Sowoon grips his sword and turns back to begin Wang Soso's treatment. Kneeling beside the unconscious girl, he quietly announces that it is time to save her life. Deep silence wraps around the surroundings while inside the wooden cabin, the healing ritual is carefully performed. Time passes, and sunlight once again brightens the forest, marking the completion of several days of treatment. Now fully recovered, Wang Soso fidgets nervously with her clothes, gathering the courage to make a special request. Blushing, the girl shyly asks if she can affectionately call him her older brother from now on. Jin Sowoon offers a gentle smile and warmly accepts her sweet request. Preparing his final instructions, the young man celebrates the initial success of the treatment, guiding Wang Soso to maintain her daily cultivation routine. A few days pass in the old cabin, with the young girl regaining more of her vitality with each new day of meditation. Wang Soso sits in the lotus position, focusing on the purified ice energy flowing perfectly through her body. Jin Sowoon praises her dedication, stating she has great talent, even if her body was once too fragile. Throughout the treatment, Jin Sowoon had the girl take a bitter pill daily to help regulate her internal system. He also patiently teaches her the exact recipe for the pills, so she can make them herself in the future. On top of that, Jin Sowoon teaches her the special Taya breathing technique to drive out any remaining toxins from her body. Pleased with the results, Jin Sowoon concludes that by keeping up this pace, Wang Soso will be able to live a long and healthy life. Seeing she can now manipulate her own energy, he confirms her training in the cabin is officially complete. With a bright smile, the young man tells her there is nothing left to teach, asking if they can finally head home. Excited, the young girl happily agrees, and they take their first steps out of the old cabin together toward the village. Suddenly, she stops dead in her tracks. You can tell she just remembered something major. Jin Sowoon turns around quite puzzled, asking her why she suddenly stopped walking on the road. Embarrassed, she tightly holds the strap of her robe, shyly asking permission to make one last request as her face turns bright red. The girl asks if she can affectionately call him older brother from now on, while Jin Sowoon listens in complete silence. Touched by her pure affection and deep trust, she waits for his answer with her heart beating fast and her head lowered in shyness. Laughing happily, Jin Sowoon accepts, making Soso absolutely overjoyed, as she asks him to call her by her nickname too. With a warm smile, he agrees, calling her Soso and holding out his hand so they can walk together. He makes a motion to gently pat her head, but freezes midair as a funny detail suddenly crosses his mind. Jin Woon suddenly remembers that Soso absolutely hated when he messed with her hair, so he quickly apologizes, calling it a bad habit. Blushing deeply, Soso shyly whispers that when it comes to him, she doesn't mind his touch. Looking up at the clear sky, Jin Woon gently reminds her that her father must be frantically waiting for her. The two stroll side by side down a gorgeous pathway lined with blooming trees, sweet pink petals raining gently around them. Delightedly watching those beautiful falling blossoms, Soso emotionally whispers about experiencing her very first spring. Since she spent her entire life locked in a frozen room, she only knew spring flowers through stories. Enthusiastically, she shares that she also wants to go hiking in the mountains during autumn, but Jin Woon tells her she needs to train her weak body first. Vast rivers and roaring waterfalls showcase the absolute natural wonders of the outside world she is now finally free to explore. Soso proudly declares she is a Marshal Tae disciple and will train incredibly hard to enjoy the summer heat in the future. At last, the two arrive at the busy Wongclan village, where lively crowds fill the streets. Giddy with excitement, Soso points at the grand estate gate showing her father's famous name, then grabs Jin Woon's hand and eagerly drags him along. Eager to introduce her savior, she happily promises that her father will host a massive feast and give him a huge reward. She cheers, saying leaders from every branch family will arrive, bringing tons of food and non-stop music with them. But with a gentle tug, Jin Woon gently lets go of her hand and stops running. With a soft smile, he tells her he must say goodbye right here, as he has no intention of entering the Wong estate. Meanwhile, deep inside the grand halls of the Namgong clan, a raging argument threatens to boil over. Chief strategist Zhuge Seomayong slowly sips his tea, utterly ignoring the furious young warrior standing before him. Namgong-san aggressively raises his voice, demanding that the promised special admission pass be handed over to his brother immediately. He insists his brother possesses unrivaled talent among the rising generation and flat-out demands a clear answer. The strategist calmly replies that if the boy is truly that gifted, he will pass the regular exam without trouble. Namgong-san clenches his fist, asking if the old man has any idea how terrifying the regular exam actually is. Tens of thousands of talented young fighters from all over the continent sign up for this competition, dreaming of passing. Only 500 manage to pass that brutal test, ruthlessly eliminating everyone else. Imagine this, that bloody, merciless exam is feared across the entire martial world as pure hell. The strategist explains he handed the pass to a far greater talent, but Namgong-san refuses to accept it. Furious, the young warrior snaps that the strategist is making a terrible mistake, while Zhuge Xiaomyong quietly sets down his cup. With an icy glare, the strategist coldly asks if the boy truly believes he is entitled to explanations for his orders. Crushed under the elder's suffocating power, Namgong-san quickly apologizes, while Zhuge Xiaomyong pours tea, calmly noting how messy their clan's internal politics are getting. He mockingly remarks how pathetic it is for a direct descendant of the great Namgong clan to be terrified of an exam. The Namgong clan operates on a strict power split, keeping direct heirs focused solely on martial traditions. Meanwhile, the side branch manages all the finances and business outside the gates. This side branch established the legendary Blue Sky Merchant Guild, slowly building up unbelievable wealth and political influence. Thanks to the guild's massive expansion, the side branch grew powerful enough to directly challenge the main bloodline. Even knowing about the guild's heinous crimes, the direct heirs cannot easily intervene. Desperate, the young warrior asks if the strategist has a solution, revealing that the clan leader is seeking a way out. Zhuge Xiaomyong's eyes go wide when he learns that the patriarch is secretly developing a swordbreaker technique. Slamming his fist, the old man warns that building a counter to their own clan's ultimate swordsmanship is absolute madness. He warns him that using this family technique will destroy every single one of them. Spilled tea on the wood symbolizes the self-destructive war brewing between these branches. Namgong-san grips his knee tightly, pleading that he absolutely needs the admission pass to save the main family's future. Leaning forward, he begs to know who received the direct entry spot. But the silent strategist only thinks of young Jin Woon. Back in the village, Soso's heart breaks as Jin Woon tells her that their long journey together is finally over. The tearful girl desperately lists reasons why they should enter her father's mansion together. Jin Woon explains that her disappearance caused total chaos, and arriving together will only trigger massive, highly dangerous suspicion. Huang Soso desperately clutches his clothes, begging him not to leave her behind. Tearfully, she begs for a real chance to repay him for saving her life. Jin Sowoon gently pats Huang Soso on the head and reminds her she claimed to be a Taiwa disciple. With a sweet smile, he says the only reward he needs is gaining a new sister in the sect. Turning around, he repeats his medical advice, warning her not to forget her daily medicine. Waving happily, the young man wishes her a long life filled with health and happiness. The confused villagers on the street stare at the girl, instantly recognizing the lost Huang Soso of the elite Huang clan. Everyone in the busy market freezes in total shock, shouting in surprise to see her alive at the entrance. While the crowd announces her return, Huang Soso watches her savior slowly fade into the distance. Jin Sowoon walks off peacefully with his hands behind his head, totally satisfied with saving an innocent life. Meanwhile, back at the Namgong clan, the brutal internal power struggle between the family branches continues to rage on. Namgung-san demands to know exactly who the strategist gave that second direct academy pass to. Moyong keeps the suspense high, completely hiding the fact that the token actually ended up with a random Taiwa boy. Jin Sowoon realizes his original plan went totally off course, leaving him unable to claim his direct reward. Insane variables like her rare solar physique forced him to completely alter her physical constitution. In the worst case, the Huang clan might suspect that he set up the whole kidnapping himself just to play the hero. So, turning down the prize was his best bet, letting her grateful father track him down instead. He calmly figures that if her father is honorable, he will visit the Taiwa sect in person. Then he makes a hilarious face of pure terror, thinking the man might just ignore it entirely before reminding himself that saving a life is reward enough. Arriving at the gate, Jin Sowoon spots Jin Hong arguing with Namgung-san in the courtyard. The noble demands a moment of his time, while Jin Hong furiously demands he leave immediately. Seeing the chaos, Jin Sowoon smirks. He teases that his little sister is finally at the age to get a boyfriend, but suddenly, a hand blocks Jin Hong's path, freezing the young girl in her tracks. Namgung-san coldly replies that he has absolutely no intention of leaving, even if he has to stay the night. Watching this, Jin Sowoon narrows his eyes, highly annoyed by the arrogant heir's nerve. Stepping forward decisively, Jin Sowoon tells the uninvited guest to back off and stop bothering her. He glares at his rival, warning that if she says no, he needs to beat it immediately. The Namgung warrior sneers down at Jin Sowoon with pure disgust, sizing up the kid in front of him. Namgung-san just smiles, declaring that the kid actually showed up at the perfect moment. Recognizing him instantly, he calls Jin Sowoon by name, introduces himself as the legendary Namgung-san, the divine dragon and direct heir of the Namgung clan. As Jin Hong mutters that this guy has been searching for him all day, Jin Sowoon finds this completely unprecedented timeline shift extremely bizarre. He wonders if this visit has anything to do with saving Huang Soso, but quickly tosses the idea aside as that is a secondary branch matter. since the prestigious main family elites would never lift a single finger for the interests of some minor branch lackeys. This visit never happened in his past life. Talk about a massive timeline shift. But Jin So-woon just smiles, knowing exactly what variable triggered this crazy encounter. Namgung-san steps closer to the boy, claiming he has a highly crucial matter they need to discuss. The arrogant heir demands they prepare a guest room and some tea so they can start talking. Completely ignoring the snobbish demand, Jin So-woon simply turns his back and says he has to greet the sect leader first. Waving him off casually, the boy tells the young noble to wait in the dirt since he did not book an appointment. Jin Hong stands there completely speechless at her brother's insane nerve, utterly destroying the highborn noble's pride. Namgung-san is practically burning with rage, unable to believe a lowly disciple treated him with such total contempt. We cut to the main hall of the Taiwa sect, where Jin Tae-san and sect leader Hong Mung-ji are having a peaceful conversation, until they suddenly choke and spit out their tea. They stare as Jin So-woon walks in, bowing politely and offering a flawless, highly formal greeting. He officially announces his return, causing Jin Tae-san to jump up from his chair, demanding to know since when his son learned any manners. Hong Mung-ji welcomes him, and Jin So-woon pulls up a chair to sit with the sect elders. The sect leader calms Jin Tae-san down, smiling as he tells the boy it has been far too long since they shared a quiet cup of tea. Pouring a cup, he asks the boy to share everything that happened while he was away. Jin So-woon explains that he rescued a kidnapped girl and had to teach her their special Taewa cultivation technique just to keep her alive. Jin So-woon apologizes for teaching the secret art without permission, predicting that the girl's father will arrive quite soon. The understanding leader readily forgives him, stating that martial arts exist precisely to save lives. Hongmi and Jintasa smile with pride, declaring how extremely happy they are with his noble actions. Jin So-woon offers a genuine smile, deeply feeling the warm and unconditional support of his Taeus family. Jintasa playfully asks about a cash reward, teasing his father for being greedy. Finishing his warm tea, the boy stands up, mentioning he still has a rather urgent pending matter to attend to. He politely takes his leave from the masters, revealing that a highly important visitor is currently waiting outside. The sect leader praises the kid's incredible maturity while Jin Tae tries to act modest with a silly grin. Suddenly, they both stop laughing and look at each other in sheer shock, wondering who this mysterious guest is. Out in the courtyard, several young disciples peek through the window in absolute awe, admiring the famous divine dragon of the Namgong clan. They whisper about his imposing presence, wishing they were born into such a grand family. They dream of learning Namgong swordsmanship, knowing only the absolute best prodigies ever enter their prestigious academy. Meanwhile, Jin Sowoon calmly enters his room, sits down, and takes a slow sip of tea, facing Namgong-san eye to eye without a shred of hesitation. Namgong-san grows quite irritated by the boy's casual posture, remembering how everyone usually bows before him. Mediocre trash, he silently reflects, often show their claws out of sheer inferiority when facing the strong. Cutting straight to the point, Jin Sowoon asks if this unexpected visit is actually about the Murim Academy entry pass. Wait for it, Namgong-san freezes in total shock, completely stunned that the kid saw right through his plan. Quickly regaining his cool composure, the young heir sets down his teacup on the table, declaring that the coveted entry spot actually belongs to him anyway. He claims he had requested the pass from the strategist first, and that the token only reached Jin Sowoon by pure luck. Jin Sowoon sarcastically asks why the old elder would ever hand that pass over to anyone else, telling him to go complain directly to the strategist. Laughing, the boy exposes the real truth, mocking him for trying to bully the Taeus sect just because his fragile pride got trampled. Namgong-san grimly admits that the brat possesses an incredibly annoying talent for getting under anyone's skin. Jin Sowoon waves playfully, saying that if he only spoke the absolute truth, then any irritation is strictly his own problem as he stares down the famous, powerful dragon. It turns out the Namgong heir is incredibly desperate for the pass because he wants to give it to his younger sister, who enters the academy this year. Trying to negotiate, he places a rare 7-color treasure pearl on the table, claiming it is easily valuable enough to buy a massive estate. Watching the glowing gem, Jin Sowoon sees his rival's growing desperation. Knowing he cannot rely on a clan weakened by internal fighting, Namgong-san claims he wanted to resolve this peacefully for the Taeus sect's sake. But this highly hypocritical attitude is precisely what irritates the boy. The way this noble cherishes his own family while deeply despising everyone else fills Jin Sowoon with absolute disgust. Remembering his brutal past where blood literally covered the ground, he would rather have his own chest torn open than watch someone whine about such trivial nonsense. With a dark look of pure anger, Jin Sowoon makes it totally clear that he will not tolerate such arrogance or the self-pitying attitude of the noble sitting before him. The guest then tries intimidation, asking what the Murim world would say if they learned the Taeus sect coveted a treasure from the great Namgong clan. He shows absolutely zero fear. Jin Sowoon responds with a highly challenging smirk, telling the arrogant heir to go right ahead and try to ruin their reputation. Infuriated by the kid's sheer nerve, the noble asks if he is really refusing, and whether the Taeus sect can truly handle the massive weight of opposing the great Namgong clan. Mocking him, Jin Sowoon tells the noble to think very carefully, reminding him of what happened in the past, when the Iron Sword sect also tried to stand against him. The boy openly mocks his rival, reminding him that the entire sect ended up utterly humiliated and destroyed by his bare hands. The proud warrior's rage instantly explodes at this massive provocation, furiously demanding how a mere disciple dares to compare his noble clan to some low-class sect. Namgong-san's expression turns incredibly dark and murderous, seeing the sheer nerve of this mere disciple who dares to look down on his noble family. Honestly, you can practically feel the entire room growing ice cold as these two glare at each other, ready to explode. Namgong-san clenches his fist tightly, deciding to settle this heated dispute once and for all. Since the kid shows so much confidence in his words, the heir stands up furiously, challenging Jin Sowoon directly to an official duel with the academy entry pass on the line. Remaining perfectly calm with a sharp gaze, Jin Sowoon accepts the fight without any hesitation. It is clear he expected this proposal right from the start. News of the duel spreads like wildfire across the courtyard, and gossip fills every corner of the Taeul sect. When they hear this shocking news, the masters and elders are left totally speechless by the absolute mess Jin Sowoon just made. Excitement builds as a massive crowd of disciples rushes to the arena, eager to witness this legendary clash between two young geniuses. The elders panic, but the disciples shout that Jin Sowoon is facing the Namgong clan divine dragon, and you can bet his pink-haired sister is terrified, unable to comprehend the madness of her brother challenging such a monster. The outer pavilion master approaches the scene, drawn by the loud commotion, only to discover that Jin Sowoon and their noble guest agreed to a duel. The young mentor explains that they had been clashing since they met, but nobody thought their petty argument would escalate into an actual fight. Disciples start cheering loudly for Jin Sowoon, showing complete faith and admiration for their genius brother. But one rational student tries to bring them back, pointing out that his opponent is the legendary young prodigy from the renowned Namgong clan. The kids quickly argue back, saying Jin Sowoon already beat Senior Jai and even the fearsome Blood Wolf of the Iron Sword sect. Fueled by pure hype, the young disciples pump their fists, swearing that Jin Sowoon will win again while the worried elders watch in silence. The crowd roars, begging their champion to go all out. Jin Tae-san watches anxiously, amazed by his son's terrifying growth, but he knows Tile Arts can barely beat the Namgong clan. The two warriors take their stances in the center of the arena under heavy gazes, as the masters wonder what Jin Sowoon is thinking. First, Jin Sowoon demands confirmation of the bet, risking his entry slot against the noble's pearls, fine silks, and their divine pill. Namgong-san accepts the deal, promising to use only his blue sky sword art and limit his energy to 30%. The genius draws his blade, warning that despite these handicaps, he does not plan on holding back the lethal power of his strikes. Jin Sowoon grips his sword hilt and signals for the start, standing firm against his opponent's crushing, intimidating aura. The entire crowd goes completely silent, as spectators swallow hard, caught in a suffocating suspense just before the steel clashes. In a flash of blinding speed, Namgong-san charges forward, tearing up the ground to launch a heavy direct assault. The swords collide with monstrous power, sending bright sparks and a heavy shockwave echoing throughout the Taeul sect courtyard. On impact, Namgong-san freezes in shock as he feels the staggering, overwhelming pressure of the blow. Right here he realizes things are going terribly wrong. They trade lightning-fast attacks without yielding an inch, creating a wild storm of sharp energy slashes in the air. Jin Sowoon uses the opening to mock his opponent, sarcastically pointing out the absolute horror on the noble's face now that things are going sideways. The pacing of the clash gets wilder as blades smash together fiercely, throwing blinding sparks in every single direction. Namgong-san blocks with extreme difficulty, wondering in his mind how this kid can be so insanely strong. Pivoting his body, Jin Sowoon delivers a brutal strike, leaving the noble heir completely stunned by his heavy blade. He grits his teeth against the impact. Clueless about where this insanely heavy force is coming from, and given absolutely no room to breathe, Jin Sowoon seamlessly chains a lightning-fast rush, pushing forward full force to completely break his rival's defense. Namgong-san lets out a groan of pain under the relentless pressure, stumbling backward from the sheer force of the exchange. Regaining his balance, the arrogant noble admits the boy has some raw talent, but warns with wounded pride that his luck ends right here. Unleashing the legendary blue sky sword art, the noble charges forward with a swift strike, shouting that miracles never happen twice. Jin Sowoon shifts with mind-blowing agility and cleanly dodges the swift attack, keeping his focus locked onto his opponent's movements. The young master instantly reads the exact trajectory of the incoming blade, showing zero hesitation or fear. The glowing blue aura of Namgong-san's blade flares ominously, illuminating the dark battlefield with blinding, lethal light. Once more, the blades slammed together with colossal force, unleashing a storm of bright sparks across the courtyard. The brutal clash of their blades causes massive energy to spill over, sending sharp shockwaves of wind flying in every direction. The two warriors keep trading fierce strikes in the center of the arena, displaying an unbelievable, matched strength that leaves the entire crowd completely stunned. His attack was blocked. Outraged, the noble fumes, asking what cheap trick some minor disciple used to stop him. So Sowoon counters right away, mockingly asking if his rival is going to use those same lame excuses. Sowoon asks out loud if the heir just cannot accept that the T-sect has martial artists equal to his own Namong clan, gripping his sword tightly. The visitor apologizes for offending their entire sect, but absolutely refuses to accept being surpassed. Driven by absolute wounded pride, the noble heir charges furiously, shouting that a Namong defeat is impossible in the martial world. And you can literally feel the tension rising as everyone panics under this crazy pressure crushing the entire courtyard. At the mention of that deadly intent, painful memories of his past life suddenly hit Sowoon hard. He remembers those dark, bloody days, lying half dead on the muddy ground under a pouring rain, surrounded by nothing but corpses and endless suffering. Heavy, terrifying footsteps echo in the blood-stained mud as cold-blooded enemies close in to finish off any remaining survivors. As Sowoon lay completely helpless in the mud, an enemy raised a gleaming blade, ready to drive it straight into his defenseless body. This tragedy happened back when the Murim alliance suffered one brutal defeat after another against that terrifying demonic sect. His squad was quite literally nothing but a desperate band of outcasts and forgotten souls. Left to die on that bloody battlefield, everyone knew them as the Lesser Justice Squad. Sowoon's deepest, most heavily guarded secret is that in his previous life, he was the actual captain tasked with leading that entire group of unfortunate souls. He went through the absolute horror of real combat, where split seconds decided if you lived or got shredded by enemy blades. Intense pain, physical exhaustion, and absolute despair were simply his everyday reality. And as he watched his closest allies drop dead around him, their warm blood sprayed into the cold air. As their captain, Sowoon fought like a complete madman to save those who trusted him, screaming in agony and coughing up blood, but he was completely helpless, forced to watch death steal his dearest friends away. Kneeling among cold corpses in the middle of a brutal storm, Sowoon carried the absolute crushing guilt of failing to protect his soldiers. He knew pretty well that if he did not raise his sword and fight like an absolute demon, his injured, exhausted comrades would be brutally slaughtered right there on the muddy ground. So he faced his enemies with bloodshot eyes, turning raw terror into pure strength while gripping his bloody hilt. He absolutely refused to fall as long as there was a single breath left in his chest. Because of that, he always threw himself onto the front lines, leading every charge straight into the heart of that living hell. Bloodlust and constant terror and that overwhelming fear were permanently engraved into the very depths of his soul. But hold on, we are back in the present as the Namong heir unleashes his final, devastating sword strike. The razor-sharp blade passes millimeters from Sowoon's face as the sudden gust of wind slices through the air with lethal force. Using his past suffering as fuel, Sowoon plants his foot firmly on the ground, shattering the dirt to launch himself into a counterattack, promising himself that in this second life, history will absolutely not repeat itself, because now he has a real family to protect. Smiling wildly as blood trickles down his cheek, Sowoon faces the lethal blade head-on. Without hesitating a single second, the two warriors collide in midair for a decisive clash, slamming their weapons together with the unbelievable power of their secret arts. With eyes burning with pure determination, Sowoon silently promises to protect everyone he loves with his very own hands. A massive explosion of dust and debris erupts in the middle of the arena, shocking all the onlookers who are watching closely. As the thick smoke slowly begins to clear, the unbelievable final result of this crazy clash is finally revealed. The entire crowd just watches the scene in complete, breathless silence. Staring in disbelief at the crazy end of this battle, Sowoon lies flat on his back on the shattered arena floor, absolutely drained after exchanging those brutal midair blows. Looking blankly up at the open sky, Sowoon takes a deep breath to catch his wind, cracking a tiny smile on his dirty, bruised face with blood dripping from his mouth. He mockingly teases his rival, asking if the great hero hadn't promised to use just a single sword technique. Namgong-san stands completely frozen, locked in the stance of the Imperial Emperor Sword, the absolute ultimate technique of the Namgong clan. The onlookers instantly realize that Namgong-san broke his word by unleashing a completely different art. Everyone knows he was pretty much forced to use it to avoid defeat. Realizing the absolutely foolish mistake he made out of pure impulse, Namgong-san stands in dead silence. Unsure of how to face the crowd, the young heir lets out a heavy sigh with a resigned smile, inwardly acknowledging that he was totally outsmarted by Jin Sowoon's sheer cleverness and raw power. Admitting defeat, Nam Gong-san openly declares he lost the wager and agrees to hand over the entry pass right now. Hearing this, the Tae clan disciples explode into pure euphoria, wildly celebrating their historic victory over the mighty Namgong clan. Instantly getting his energy back, Jin Sowoon jumps up laughing and reminds Namgong-san to hand over the silk, the vitality pill, and the rare pearl. Laughing with pure greed, Jin Sowoon celebrates, knowing he used his entry slot as bait to score those priceless high-tier treasures. But wait, just as Jin Sowoon is figuring out how to sell this loot, Namgong-san drops a massive bombshell. Completely thrown off by those words, Jin Sowoon can only stare blankly at Namgong-san. With no clue what Namgong-san is planning, Jin Sowoon watches as he points his blade. Admitting that Jin Sowoon is no ordinary martial artist, Namgong-san states that the outcome of their bet has already been completely settled. But the final conclusion of their actual sparring match is a completely separate issue. Flashing a pretty arrogant smirk, Namgong-san orders him to draw his weapon, while Jin Sowoon stands there completely stunned. Before he can even process, Namgong-san charges forward, launching a brutal strike that tears through the air with terrifying force. Jin Sowoon leaps backward across the courtyard, barely dodging a strike that literally shatters the ground. Sensing the renewed fury in Namgong-san's movements as he dodges the onslaught, Jin Sowoon complains about this meaningless pride, even offering to fake a loss just to make him stop. Rejecting the offer with a serious gaze, Namgong-san snaps that he needs no favors, only a real victory. Unleashing another heavy strike, he declares that true victory is grabbed by force, while Jin Sowoon struggles to block. Barely deflecting the blow, Jin Sowoon instantly feels that Namgong-san's blade has completely changed. It feels somehow much heavier than before, reminding him of how he once fought to protect his own comrades. Namgong-san is carrying the entire weight of his clan's pride. He cannot let the Namgong clan name be ruined, pouring all his desperation into a final bid to win. Their heavy blades clash again, sending sparks flying as the pressure of this deadly duel skyrockets by the second. Both of them charging midair. Neither is willing to yield even a single inch of ground, leaving Namgong-san completely stunned. Namgong-san demands to know how Jin Sowoon can block the blue sky sword when he struggled earlier. Jin Sowoon grumbles at the useless chatter while defending, remembering that even his past life records had zero info on this secret art. That is because the Namgong clan always kept this deadly technique highly classified. Without any prior knowledge, it is absolutely impossible for him to create a proper counter-formula. This fight is getting incredibly dangerous for Jin Sowoon. Jin Sowoon is sent flying backward, dragging his feet as his worried father and the sect elders cry out in pure panic. Seeing his son in danger, his father yells to stop the duel immediately before Jin Sowoon ends up getting seriously crippled. He realizes with dread that Namgong-san has completely unlocked his internal energy to brutally crush his opponent once and for all. Leaning heavily on his sword, Jin Sowoon pants heavily from exhaustion, staring at Namgong-san in the middle of their completely ruined training grounds. And yet, Jin Sowoon is pretty impressed to see this arrogant master actually giving his absolute all against someone he looked down on. Even if he despises these high and mighty nobles, Jin Sowoon has to respect the sheer level of dedication this guy is showing. Looking at the absolute giants of the martial world, Jin Sowoon truly understands the desperate effort Namgong-san is making to protect his clan's honor. Despite hating the elite class, Jin Sowoon is genuinely moved by Namgong-san's burning desire to win. His pink-haired junior sister clasps her hands in desperate prayer, her heart in her throat as she watches him fight. Wiping a fresh trail of blood from his mouth, Jin Sowoon flashes a sly smirk showing he still has plenty of fight left in him. Looking up with a pretty sharp gaze, Sowoon tells himself that losing this duel is simply not an option. He carries the immense pride of being a true disciple of the Tai sect. Standing firm in the center of the arena with that conviction, he shifts his posture, which catches his opponent's eye. Watching closely, the noble heir Namgong-san notes the boy's unshaken resolve and begins to suspect that this simple tea disciple is actually hiding his true potential. He remembers that blocking the blue sky technique is not something any ordinary warrior could do without major preparation. Plus, destroying the Iron Sword sect was definitely no coincidence, proving that Sowoon is hiding some pretty deep secrets. Still, the noble heir declares his imperial technique will surpass him and demands that he attack, while Sowoon just smiles. As Sowoon accepts the challenge with a quiet smile, Namgong-san prepares for his final surge. Holding his sharp sword straight ahead in a solid stance, Namgong-san charges with crazy speed and warns, "Don't blame me if you end up dying from this blow." Sowoon knows there is absolutely no simple formula to break this high-level imperial art, but he decides to trust his senses to find a tiny opening, perfectly remembering the starting stance of the attack. Using that exact memory to calculate his precise timing. Watch this, the noble's eyes widen in pure shock as he realizes the boy read his movement right at impact. Seizing this perfect opening, Sowoon unleashes the lesser sky sword technique to deliver a lightning-fast counterattack on his rival. Stunned, Namgong-san clicks his tongue, seeing how the boy countered in a split-second window without losing any of his momentum. The rival quickly spins his body to adjust his stance and continue this incredibly violent clash of swords in the arena. Their blades slam together brutally once more, erupting into a massive shockwave that sends sharp energy flying in every direction. Namgong-san's feet move fast across the dirt, keeping up constant pressure on the Tai disciple's desperate defense. Shouting in absolute fury, the noble heir pours every single drop of his remaining strength into the strike, determined to crush the boy's defense once and for all. Sowoon absorbs the impact with shaking hands under the crushing pressure of a blade trying to force him down at all costs. Gritting his teeth, the boy holds off the heavy onslaught, resisting the insane weight with sheer resolve to survive this duel. Hearing his companions shouting from the sidelines, Sowoon is surprised by the sudden, unconditional support of the younger disciples. Out in the courtyard, these disciples watch anxiously as the brutal clash unfolds, cheering with everything they have for their senior brother to win. The younger kids scream from the crowd, begging Sowoon to show the true strength of the Tai sect right here in the center of the courtyard. Both fighters remain completely locked in a fierce struggle of blades, while the young crowd's echoes ring out around them. Hearing the encouraging shouts of his Tai family, a confident, knowing smile finally creeps onto the boy's face. You can feel the tension peak here. Namgong-san's eyes fly open as a sudden, massive shift in energy wraps around the boy's sword as he charges. Gathering all his momentum, Sowoon lunges forward to deliver one final, decisive strike. Determined to show his juniors what the Tai sect can truly do, he moves, while the kids watch in pure awe. The boy is proving that you don't need to be born into some fancy noble clan or possess legendary, supreme techniques. He shows that by using only the basic lesser sky sword technique of the Tai sect, it is entirely possible to reach an extraordinary level of power with a brilliant, roaring charge. Sowoon is proving to everyone watching that anyone can become strong enough to stand against the great legends of this world. The sheer impact of his attack literally shatters the air around them, freezing the stunned faces of the young girl and the sect leader, who simply cannot believe what they are seeing. Through the debris flying across the courtyard, Sowoon's sharp gaze cuts through, focusing every ounce of his strength into one final movement. Shards of light reveal the Namgong clan heir desperately trying to defend against the perfect blade closing in on him with terrifying focus. Sowoon completes his sword's path, slicing clean through his opponent's defense. In that final, split second, a spray of deep red blood splashes into the air as the swift attack strikes the noble rival. Two shadow figures freeze on the floor of the shattered arena, amidst a heavy silence that suddenly washes over the entire sect. The pink-haired girl stands completely frozen and speechless, covering her mouth in utter disbelief. Witnessing the unbelievable outcome, Namgong-san remains completely motionless with wide eyes, paralyzed by the shock of being surpassed so cleanly. Sowoon stands behind his rival, his cold blade rests right against the throat of the legendary Namgong Gunggong. A smug, victorious smile plastered on his face as his opponent's blood drips down. Sowoon mockingly asks the noble heir if he really wants to keep going. With blood trickling down his neck, Namgong Gunggong stands frozen, silently accepting his utter defeat. Firm, heavy footsteps echo. Watch this, because someone is slowly walking right toward the spot where that brutal duel just ended. The high-stakes battle finally ends as a sword clatters loudly onto the stone floor, while Sowoon quietly stares down his completely stunned, defeated opponent. Flashing a highly confident smirk, Sowoon whispers that this is just the absolute beginning of his unbelievable display of power to the entire crowd. Then he laughs nervously. An absolutely overwhelming wave of pain is suddenly surging through his shattered hand. Realizing he almost lost his entire arm by pouring every ounce of inner energy into that single, massive hit, the youngest disciples of the sect erupt in pure joy, screaming and celebrating the epic victory of their amazing older brother. While someone desperately calls for a doctor, the kids rush to give him a big hug. But Sowoon quickly warns them to stand back because of the blood, demanding they call for the sect doctor right this second. The sect elders watch the scene with expressions of absolute shock and deep worry. They cannot believe the highly reckless danger the young man willingly took on during the duel. The sect leader watches the end of the fight with a relieved look, though he is still deeply worried about the severe injury Sowoon suffered on his hand. Sowoon smiles warmly while soaking in the pure affection from his young companions, completely forgetting the excruciating pain in his hand for a brief second. Namgong Gunggong stands in total silence, head low with a deeply thoughtful expression, quietly reflecting on the shocking, unexpected defeat he just suffered in the arena. A furious shout echoes from the temple, asking if Sowoon has completely lost his mind by being so reckless. Back inside, his younger sister So Yongyong yells in absolute frustration, calling him a total psycho for grabbing a sharp sword blade with his bare hands while he awkwardly tries to calm her down. Pointing at his heavily bandaged arm, she scolds him fiercely. Your hand would have been sliced clean off if Namgong Gunggong had been at full power. The other sect members join in, shouting in agreement. They accuse the young man of being incredibly irresponsible, demanding to know the doctor's exact diagnosis right this second. So Woon tries to calm everyone with an embarrassed laugh, while the doctor in the back sternly warns that he barely avoided permanent bone damage. So Yong completely loses her temper at his casual attitude and punches So Woon right in the face, screaming that this is definitely not a minor injury. So Woon crashes to the floor in agony, whining about her sudden violent outburst. The other leaders just stand there watching, completely refusing to help him out as he lies sprawled miserably on the floor of the room. Then he hears a quiet, steady dripping sound, and you can literally feel the mood in this room shift in an instant. Tears well up in So Yong's eyes as she threatens to chop off his hand herself if he ever pulls another reckless stunt like this again. So Woon is deeply touched by her genuine care and softly begs her not to cry, swearing a sincere promise that he will be much more careful from now on. The sect leader walks calmly over to So Woon and gently calls his name, while So Yong reluctantly steps back, still thoroughly pouting from their heated argument. He gently takes So Woon's bandaged hand, asking with a sorrowful gaze why he had to go so far and take such a wild risk. So Woon averts his eyes and quietly begins to explain his reasons, revealing what was actually running through his mind during that dangerous moment. He explains that Nam had zero manners, totally disrespecting the entire sect by refusing to greet the leader with proper etiquette. Plus, he spoke down to his beloved sister in a horribly disrespectful tone. So Woon simply wanted to teach the arrogant intruder a proper lesson, leaving both elders completely stunned by the young man's sheer boldness. A beautiful blue sky filled with white clouds stretches high above the sect, quietly signaling that the chaotic storm of their brutal duel has finally passed, giving way to a much-needed moment of quiet reflection for everyone. Outside, Namgong walks slowly across the stone courtyard with heavy steps, leaving behind the exact place where he suffered his humiliating defeat. Suddenly, the quiet courtyard is broken by a furious shout from inside the temple, calling So Woon a total idiot and completely startling the young noble warrior. The elder continues to scream at So Woon, demanding to know what stupid reason made him keep fighting when he already won the wager against the imperial technique. Looking incredibly serious, So Woon firmly answers that he kept on fighting for one simple reason, because all the younger disciples were watching him. The elder is left completely speechless, staring wide-eyed at the young man as he slowly processes the incredibly deep response he just heard. So Woon explains that even if he lost a finger, the children saw the sect sword pointed at his neck and realized that their martial arts still hold a great deal of real potential. He explains that instead of feeling envious and wishing they were born into some elite family, those kids will now have a whole new perspective on their training. Right on the courtyard floor, shattered pieces of the wooden practice sword glisten, reflecting the fierce resolve of the young disciples, who now look at the ruins with totally fresh eyes. So Woon adds that they will finally believe their own sword can defeat even a legendary noble clan, inspiring everyone to keep moving forward. The elder snaps and looks away, claiming it is absolute nonsense, and that those kids were probably just terrified after seeing his finger almost get chopped off. So Woon smiles warmly, saying that if even one disciple out of 100 truly understands the heart of their sect, losing a finger is a remarkably small price to pay. The old man grumbles in annoyance, calling his words absolute nonsense as he turns to walk away, trying to hide the massive wave of emotion welling up in his chest with a flushed face and teary eyes. The elder mumbles to himself that So Woon is still just a naive, incredibly stubborn kid. But get this, as the elder opens the door to slip out, he runs straight into Namgong-san, standing in the hallway, completely caught off guard by the young noble's presence. Extremely embarrassed at being caught crying, the elder stares at the visitor with absolute panic while quickly brushing away his tears, before suddenly running off and shouting in pure frustration, leaving the young noble completely baffled, totally unable to make any sense of the old elder's dramatic reaction. The sect leader appears right after, offering a warm smile to welcome their visitor, politely inviting the young warrior inside for a calm, private conversation. The blue-haired young man steps gracefully into the room, moving with pure elegance and respect. As he prepares to face So Woon once again, he offers a deep, formal bow with joined hands, showing that he has truly learned to respect the Tay sect and its members after the brutal duel he just experienced. So Woon observes this newfound respectful attitude with a quiet, calm gaze, carefully reading the demeanor of his former opponent, who now carries himself with genuine dignity. The sect leader gives an understanding smile and announces that he will leave the young men to sort out their business privately, politely asking everyone else to step out and give them some space. The sunset sky slowly fades into shades of orange and gold, marking the end of an incredibly intense day and setting the stage for mutual understanding between the young warriors. Seated across from each other at a wooden table, Namgong-san presents the valuable items he promised as his wager payment, honoring his word with absolute sincerity. Right after, he looks at So Woon with genuine curiosity, asking what on earth made him risk his own life and take such a massive injury in that duel. Namgong-san says solemnly that losing to his elite clan is never something to be ashamed of, given how things work in the martial world. He adds that losing to the Tay sect carries no dishonor either, but questions whether the warriors here truly live up to those high ideals. With a razor-sharp gaze, Sowoon asks what he actually considers shameful, and if he is simply judging the entire world on famous names and raw strength. The young heir's eyes widen at the young man's deep question, and you can tell his core beliefs are seriously starting to wobble under the weight of that truth. Sowoon's shadow stretches across the wall as he wonders aloud what would actually happen if their famous clan secrets were to simply vanish one day. Sowoon states firmly that lacking legendary martial arts inside a sect will never mean they completely lack pride. Staring down at the precious pearl resting on the table, the visitor begins to reflect deeply on the incredible lesson he just received from his rival. Namgong-san agrees and admits that Sowoon put his own hand on the line, a swordsman's most precious asset, proving his pride is far greater than his own. He looks up with highly sincere eyes, asking for forgiveness for all his previous arrogance and utter disrespect toward the Tay sect. The visitor offers a deep, respectful bow, apologizing for the incredibly arrogant behavior he displayed in front of their young heir earlier. Sowoon flashes a warm smile, recognizing that his opponent is humble enough to own up to his mistakes and apologize with real dignity. He laughs warmly, accepting the sincere apology, and asks Namgong-san to also forgive any disrespect he might have shown during their massive duel. Both young warriors bow to each other, exchanging a deep salute loaded with quiet, mutual respect, permanently locking in the peace between their lineages. The sun slowly dips behind the peaks, ending a brutal day of wild battles as night begins to take over. Under the bright glow of a full moon lighting up the starry sky, wait for it, a man yells out in total shock from deep inside the temple after hearing a sudden announcement. The elders sit there completely frozen while the sect leader calmly sips his tea, having just dropped a massive bombshell that leaves the whole room totally speechless. Cool as ice, the leader asks what they think about finally making. Soon the official chief disciple of the sect,